So yep, I reconnected with a friend, mentor recently. And yeah, I'll go into she's no bullshit kind of love. I mean, she is loving, but in a very real way. There's no like frills, there's no softening it. It's stated directly. And I love that, and it also scares me. In person, I'm like, ow. Wait, okay. I know you. I know you. I know you. Okay. But she stated the other day, sometimes we need to cross our own boundaries. We need to cross our own boundaries sometimes to know what they are. That was Schmidt.
What's he doing over there?
What is he doing?
Broke into a closet.
Oh,
Success. Probably he's been trying.
raising hell. Oh, he
Guilty.
Oh, I'm giving you a kiss.
Guilty.
Guilty.
Charged.
Guilty.
Look at that face.
You're so cute.
He said, I don't care. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
I'll do it again. What?
I'd do it again.
I love cat energy.
Yeah. Do what I want.
Yeah.
Sorry about the editing on that one.
Very okay. He's crossing your boundaries, so you know that.
Exactly.
Sometimes you need your cat to cross your boundaries too, not just you.
So much, all the time.
Scooby, she was out there digging in the garden this morning. I had to check her little muddy paws and she had dirt all over her face. And I had to pick her up and show her, no, this is not a thing. We can't do this. So yeah, I never told her, don't dig in the garden. Like she didn't know. I never clarified that boundary. Then she crossed it and then I addressed it, like it's so easy for me to like get mad right out of the gate. Like my boundary got crossed or whatever, like I'm all like worked up about it. And it's like, yeah, but did you express that boundary? Did you communicate it? Have you owned it before? Like, what is the real situation that's going on here? Versus like, I understand how you feel and like your boundary got crossed. You're allowed to feel all kinds of ways about it. But yeah, like step one, let's back up and just Scooby, no, can't do. Can't do. Don't do. Yeah.
But you also have like energy of love with the animals. Like you're so like it's so obvious you're like tight with your animals. Energy.
Like my little buddies,
So they'll listen.
That's why I tell them, because she will. Yeah. You just gotta show her and tell her. And she's got her ears down and back and she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And I'm like, I know, it's okay, but don't do this. Okay. So yeah, like calmly address the issue. And then yeah, she mostly listens. So I mean, it's like you don't have to like get all mad and have a fit and freak out. And like if you just ask for what you need, just say it out loud. I mean, mostly I feel like the world will comply with you. There's so much that I kept on the inside expecting people to just like know where my boundaries were and like get away from me, like get away from my boundaries. And it's like, yeah, maybe be clear enough to be able to say them out loud. And then if people still cross them, that's like a whole nother issue,
Right? Yeah. And just to have the self-awareness that we have them. I mean, there's a long time I didn't even know. I just assumed my subjective experience was like known to others.
Or that we all feel the same, that we're all bothered by the same things, like it's easy to just think that everybody's as sensitive as I am. So why on earth would anybody treat me like this? They know it doesn't feel good. Why are they doing this to me? And it's like, they don't have this even close to the same experience as you do. If they did, they wouldn't be treating you like this. So just educate them, just tell them, you don't need to be mad. Not right now, like I said, if they cross it after you tell them, like that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Definitely. Yeah, I've had to reach that point recently of like, I can't be mad when my boundaries get crossed when I've never put them out there. Like I've never told anyone this is my boundary. But then there's that piece before it, like exactly what Jodi said, is like, but how do you figure out what your own boundaries are? It's like, yeah, they need to get crossed. And then you're going to say, oh, like there's a boundary there. I need to establish that in the future with other people so that they don't do that. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to assert your boundaries when you don't even know what they are.
So they have to get crossed.
So they got to get crossed.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can cross them ourselves, which is
Cross our own boundaries.
it's so liberating to think that way. I can cross my own boundaries and then feel the repercussions of it and be like, do I want to do that again? Maybe. Maybe I will. Maybe I will do it again until I learn to not.
That's the worst, is when you are self-aware and you know that like you're not supposed to be trying to cram your truth down other people's throat. This is my version. And like I feel myself doing it in the moment. And I'm like, Carly, you should stop. And I'm like, you're right, I should. But obviously I'm not going to. And you get into, then they aren't happy with you or you trigger them or whatever. And it's like, now you have that on your hands. And it's like, I mean, yes, I knew way back when that I should stop. This is my own boundary. And I crossed it again. I needed a little bit more of that lesson, a little bit more of that experience. Like, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's all right.
Like a lot of the time, I feel like the thing on the other side of the boundary is tempting. Like the example that popped into my head was being lactose intolerant. And like when I first found out, and I was like, but I want to get the mac and cheese at like the school lunch or whatever it is, you know? And it's like that thing is so tempting and like I want it, but I know I've learned that crosses my boundary. My body doesn't like that. And it makes me feel bad. And I might continue crossing that boundary because I like what I'm eating, but I will suffer the consequences. And eventually I learned it's not worth it. It's not worth it to keep crossing this boundary. My body let me know. That was in like the 3rd grade. So it was rough. Rough times.
That's so hard.
Yeah. That's okay. I'm glad I learned early, actually. That's a good thing to have gotten that through my system of it's really not a good idea to cross that boundary. I mean, every now and then you decide it's worth it. Then it's worth it, you know? And that's a choice though. It's intentional and you know what you're going to get. Yeah.
Which I think is like, yeah, I mean, it's bringing up more experiences where I intentionally cross my own boundaries that I set for myself to like keep myself safe and feeling good or whatever. And if I'm going to cross it, like I go enter this territory that I told myself I wasn't going to go, it's like, are you ready to be triggered? Like, are you ready to handle that? Because if you're not, then stay the fuck out of there. But if you are, if you have the emotional space, if you're ready to get in your journal, you're ready to sit with what comes up, like if you're ready, then go over there and learn something, mix it up, go for it. But if you're not in the right headspace, then just stay out of there. Leave your boundary where it's at. You know, that's obviously like once you know where it is and once you, yeah. Like my comments, I've mentioned many times, like my comments are like an enter at your own risk type situation. Don't look at it if you're not in the mood to have some stuff be triggered, because that's basically what goes on in there.
Right.
Which is fine, as long as I have the energy and like am acknowledging, like I know what I'm getting and I do want that, you know, I want to see what's in there. So just got to pick the right moment.
Yeah. Their video or your live yesterday, Carly, that was so like very wise, the beginning when somebody was asking about shadow work and you were saying like you only entered it when the pain of staying out of it was harder than the pain of going in. That's super, super wise. Like that's wise for all of us. Like if we're going to go into like a situation or anything with ourselves, like push ourselves to a certain limit, like why? Know why. If there's a there's an end point if you're going in for an experience and then you have the tools to come back to your, like, my word for that, like homeostasis. I always tell like how can you get back to homeostasis?
Totally.
Like if you have the ability to come back into that, you can carefully, you know, dabble.
When it's time.
Yeah.
I think like the vibe that can sometimes float around out there is like buzzwords get going and then people start asking about things that like, oh, this is popular, so I want to understand it. And it's like, that's fine, but like this really, in my opinion, isn't work to dabble in unless you're in pain and you need help with your pain that's real and right now. In which case, like shadow work is brilliant, emotion management in general. But otherwise, like if you're happy, if you're like doing okay and hanging in, like
be happy,
like keep doing what you're doing, you know, like it'll find you when it's time. That's how.
It feels like something that seeks you. And for so many of us who at some point find themselves in the space of like the dark night of the soul, as so people explain it. And I feel like that was kind of my entrance into like something needs to change, because I'm like exactly what Carly said, like I'm the common denominator here, I'm pretty sure, in all these situations. I think it's me. Like I need to address something, and that kind of thing, like, yeah, you don't have to seek that out. It finds you for sure. Like when you're experiencing extended depression, or like existential depression is probably what I would call it, of like, I don't even like, why am I even here? What is going on? And like, I spent a lot of my life feeling like that. Like, what's going on? What is all this? And it just feels so strange. And yeah, like this work will find you if it needs to.
Yeah, like a crow in the back of the head.
If you ever get hit in the back of the head by a crow, there's probably
probably found you.
Yeah,
like something found you.
Yeah, literally. Yes. Yeah, maybe I should explain that. So yes, so on one day this week, there was a day this week that I experienced where basically, well, obviously the main event of the day was I got hit in the back of the head by a crow, and I like felt its talons on the back of my head, and I like kind of had a headache for the rest of the day. So I did not forget. Just being in my body was a reminder that happened. And that was about like the middle of the day. But the things that happened around this event were basically running into an old roommate where I had kind of some unfinished business, unresolved emotions. Got a text from an ex, basically got reached out to by an ex who I haven't heard from in a long time. A couple people, or somebody reached out over Instagram, like I got tagged in something that was basically just reminiscent on like an old study abroad trip that I did to Italy. And it was like my roommates at the time, and it was kind of all four of us like basically had a little like, hi, like miss you, hope you're doing well, that kind of thing. So not a big deal or anything, and that was nice. I'm trying to remember if anything else happened. I don't think so, but yeah, just people coming out of the woodwork, and it's like, what's up with that, all on the exact same day? And then I get hit in the back of the head by a crow, and it feels like something. For sure feels like something.
Something.
Yeah, I almost felt like cords.
A little something.
Yeah, I know I keep doing this, the talons. I felt them on my head. It was crazy. There's a lot of crows around here. I feel like there's so many times when you see a bird fly by and it's a near miss, and you're like, wow, that bird really got it really close. But no, it literally hit me in the back of the head. So square in the back of the head. So if anyone else never had an experience like that, please share. I'd love to know.
Yes, I would too.
I would love to know. Because yeah, here, I'll tell you what it said. When I looked it up, specifically about being hit in the back of the head. That in particular says, while very rare, sometimes crows can dive bomb you and hit your head, which I actually don't think it flew from above. I think it came from the ground. I couldn't see because it was behind me. But it says crows hitting your head is a sign that you have done something to harm someone else, It may be helpful to do some self-reflection and ask yourself if you need to clear any negative karmic debt you've accumulated. Someone holds a grudge against you, and clearing this will help you release some negativity you're holding on to. So that was where I got like the grudge thing about the old roommate. Like maybe she's holding a grudge that like, you know, her dog ruined the carpet. And I was like, I'm not paying for that because that was your dog. And that was the agreement. But I can see how that was kind of where I got that piece of maybe there's a grudge. And when somebody else holds a grudge against you, they're actually holding on to a piece of your energy. And sometimes like maybe that was a moment for both of us to see each other and be like, it's been however many years, 3 years, however long it's been since I graduated. And like, we can move on from this now. I can have that piece of my energy back, hopefully. But I needed to let go.
Maybe of the guilt.
Yeah, there was
like when you see her, like you're like, oh, all I see is guilt.
Yeah, pretty
I don't
much.
see you. I see my guilt.
Yeah, pretty much. That's actually, I really like that you said that because I think that's very poignant. Like, yeah, I think I held on to that because part of me thinks, oh, she must hate me for that. And it did kind of ruin our friendship a little bit. Like we really didn't talk after that all went down. So I just had that feeling like, yeah, maybe she's holding a grudge against me. Maybe like, and I feel guilty about that because I never want to cause anybody any harm or unpleasantness in their life. And in that time, I was really just trying to stand up for myself. And I was really learning to like stand on my own 2 feet and be like, no, I'm going to draw the line here. This is a boundary for me that you said if your dog ruined things, you'd pay for it. And now you're trying to ask me to pay for it. And I don't have that money. Like,
that seems like a very boundary to me, like super realistic. And what boundaries? I'm curious, what do we do when we know that something we do is the right thing for us, and probably the right thing for them as well, because we're not bending to someone else's will for pleasing them. Yeah, you know, because everyone else others are learning lessons too.
Yeah.
How do we address guilt that's sticking there? Like, what's a good way to release it if we feel it and we know that it's not guilt, that because there's like one type of guilt where it allows us to make like repairs. You know, it can motivate us to be like, hey, I need to say I'm sorry for X, Y, and Z. And then there's others that are like, it's guilt because we did something different than how we were trained to be, even though it was right for us. Like, how do we release that, you know, each time? Or do we even bother? You know, we just let it sit there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good question that I don't have an answer, but I want to sit with that of like, yeah, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
And I think in this case for me, I didn't know what to do with it / didn't really know I was still harboring that because it had been so long. And sometimes, you know, you bump into that person in a very unexpected place. You're like, wow, I never would have expected to see you here, and here you are. And all of a sudden it all comes back. And it's like, maybe for me, I don't know, maybe the part of the reminder was like, I don't know, maybe it did need to be let go of. I think it did now, but maybe it did. I could have let go of it a long time ago, but I didn't know how. I definitely didn't know how. So guilt's a tricky emotion.
But it is an emotion. And if you like zoom out to emotions, like their messages is how I think about it. Like if the emotion is present, then it's like a little reminder on your computer that hasn't been processed. And it's like if guilt is present, then you haven't digested like what the emotion is bringing you. Like how you said, like it's right, like every single emotion is for helping us to modify ourselves, our behavior, our choices, our whatever it is. And I think like when we feel guilty, once you change the right thing of like, what is the guilt? And I think most of the time, like the guilt that comes that's on the surface is not actually why you feel guilty. That's my own personal opinion after working with my own guilt in depth, which is like, okay, so a good example of like ghosting my friend and the guilt trip that was like 2 freaking months, like severely depressed over like doing that to her because she didn't deserve it. And I treated her this way and I felt terrible. And it's like, I felt guilty about ghosting her, but as I sat with it for a couple months, what I really felt guilty about was not speaking up sooner and not ever saying anything when it was smaller and easier. And like maybe we could have communicated and addressed it and the friendship wouldn't have been over. That like I was feeling guilty that I let it get to a place where my only course of action was get her the out of my life like right now, like get her away from me. And like that's where I was and that's what was best for me and I needed it. But oh my God, the guilt like consumed me. And it really was like not over how I treated her at the end, it was like how I treated her for 2 years, how I didn't stand up for myself for 2 years. And then it led to that. And it's like the guilt was so much more than like you shouldn't ghost people. Like that had nothing to do with it. At that point, it was already case closed. Like that's all we have left as far as an option to get ourselves out of here. So that's like a very personalized experience with like that one piece of guilt. But I do think that like when you've received the message, the messenger can go, like that it's not so much about releasing the emotion itself so much as it is like, why are you here? What is it? Like, what is it really that you have to tell to me? And when you've heard it, it'll leave you alone. And as long as you're scared to look at it, then it's like, yeah, I mean, it's just a little box on your computer screen that like you never click on. And it's like, fine, that's fine. You don't have to click on it, but it's going to hang out as long as you don't click on it. So I don't know. That's my 25 cents worth.
That's some really good insight. The whole time you were talking, I was like, yes. Like I know exactly what you are talking about. And it brings me back to this roommate situation where I am so passive. I historically that's my natural tendency, and it's something I'm working on. And I didn't say anything the entire like time that I lived there, which was 2 years. And I never spoke up that entire time until it was this issue where the dog had literally destroyed the carpets. And it was like, are you going to pay for it? And I was like, I should have said something a long time ago before the carpets were destroyed. And when it would have been, because I just didn't want to ruffle people's feathers and cause tension in the apartment unit, basically, was what I was avoiding. But by avoiding that tension, I ended up in this very tense situation in the end. And this is a theme in my life that I'm noticing now of like, I am the common denominator here of I didn't speak up all along when things were smaller. And maybe it would have been a little awkward and uncomfortable, but compared to what it builds into, it's really not that much. So that feels like a big takeaway from that experience anyway. Should have spoke up.
Yeah, I can relate to all of this too. I mean, being passive because I don't want to, first of all, I want to be liked.
Yeah.
I don't want to have any enemies.
Right.
Can't avoid that. Some people just don't have goodwill, first of all. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Some are just not gonna like gel with us. And it's like, it's just hiding the truth so that we can protect our image of ourselves. That's how I feel. Like when I've done it, I've been like, okay, I need to be superwoman. I need to be like the ultimate like person that people can rely on. I need to be the one who can get everything done. Like, who knows, like, how many of those fantasy selves I have. I don't know. I don't even know. I could probably write a list. But yeah, they did get to the point where it was like, it's almost like a good goal is just simplifying everyday communications. Yeah, down to just the very basics. And taking the time to like check in with ourselves and then speak it to another if necessary. And before it gets huge, it's so easy to do it with love if we're taking care of ourselves and like saying it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then like animals, because we're human animals, we're still animals, right?
I think so.
Dogs, I mean, dogs, like they get scared and like they shiver,
Mm-hmm.
they have a growl, they like, hey, yeah, I don't like you, or just get out, get on my space. It's just it's so fast. And then all of a sudden they've like they shake it off and then they're back to just doing their thing.
Yeah.
Like we got so complicated.
Yes.
Like if we just say, oh, hey, I needed a message on blah, 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 or, hey, just tell me how you feel like right then, or like, hey, I didn't, are you angry? I'm feeling some passive aggressive, like, is this me or is this you? Like just so quickly, like, and then we just shake it off, like, and then it's done. Like there's no build up. Like to me, that seems like the ideal. How do we get there? I don't know.
I feel like you're describing Aries energy. Like
Oh, really?
that is Aries energy, is like feel the thing, express the thing, move on with your life. Like it is that simple, period. And in Aries energy land, it's that simple. Everybody else, and especially Libra, definitely overcomplicates the situation by factoring in the reactions and opinions and needs of everybody else in the whole freaking universe usually. So yeah, it's like, how do you keep it simple? You put yourself in the equation and nobody else. Aries energy. Like feel the thing, you need something, say it out loud. You're hungry, you're sleepy, you're tired, you're angry, you're fussy, speak it. Just say it. Nobody else needs to do anything about it, right? Like nobody owes you anything, but to speak your own needs in the moment of feeling it, like allowing like a direct connection from your core to your throat to just like let it come out however it is, like Aries. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay.
Give me more of that.
Yeah, but let us, we need a little
more helping, please. Nope.
Yeah, and yeah, it burns it off. It's fire. It burns it off. It's just like done. Stop.
My dad, he is an Aries moon and he is notorious for his temper tantrums. How he can like in a second melt it down, build it back up, and he's on with his day in like 30 seconds. Like just let it out, erupt like a volcano, and then he's like back to normal, like laughing and joking and like having a good time. It's like all set.
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna carry that you just erupted for the next. Like,
I know. That's what I was just thinking. I was
like, glad you're better. Like I'm not better. I'm now a million, right? But you're better, so that's good. But like, it really does matter. That's obviously the shadow of Aries, is that you burn other people with what you're spewing. And it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe let there be some distance so you can speak what you need and let them be far enough away so they don't have to get their eyebrows singed. And yeah, but like you do have to speak your needs. Like that's a very real part of what we got to do.
That makes a lot of sense. Both of my boyfriend's parents have an Aries moon. Both of them do. So
like his mom and his dad, you mean?
Yeah, mom and dad both have an Aries moon.
Wow.
And like one of them has temper tantrums and the other one just says what she's feeling, really. I mean, like to me, that's like that's something I actually like. I feel like I need to like kind of foster that up in myself more, of like, she just says how she feels, and like there is like, of course, that shadow side of, and the shadow side plus how do we balance this with Libra where I'm not burning other people, but I am expressing my own fire. Like I am expressing myself and how I feel and my needs. But yeah, that the balance with Libra is key, I think, to that. And like, yeah, interesting. Hadn't really put that together.
So that reminds me of a Matt Kahn video I was watching the other day. I think it is Love is the Only Answer. And basically somebody said to him what you just said of like, but I don't want to be rude. Like, I don't want to burn people. And he's like, get mad, do it. Like, be rude to me for the next 5 minutes. Show me what that looks like. Maddie, Pooh Bear. Like, you couldn't be rude if you tried. Like, what I'm saying is like, you are so far on the Libra side of like, if you walked it back even like 50 miles, you'd still be on the Libra side. Like, just, I mean, like, I don't even think you understand like how harmonious your vibe just is. That like, I think even if you did put it out there a little bit more, like what you need or speaking up, like, I think it's still going to get wrapped in a very harmonious exterior, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
That's
my thoughts on that. Like, yeah, be rude. What does that even look like? I don't even think.
I was like wondering, I was like, what would that even look like? I did learn, it's funny how like, I mean, with your birth chart, it's like you can discover something new forever in it. But I discovered I have a Libra midheaven, and I discovered it's at 0 degrees, which is a critical degree for Libra. And I don't know how they divide up like the critical degrees for which sign gets what, but for Libra and 3 other signs, it's 0 degrees, which basically, like, as far as I am as far as I understand, it just kind of adds an extra layer of challenge and emphasis to that energy of like, this is going to be really dominant and like something you're going to need to work through. Which of course, if my MC is 0 degrees Libra, that makes my IC 0 degrees Aries. And like 0 degrees Aries, woo. That's like the babiest of babies right there of the zodiac, is literally the 0 degree of the first sign. Wow. So I'm trying to figure out what that means, because it's not a critical degree for Aries, only for Libra. So I think that's what puts the emphasis on that Libra energy of like, this one's like tipping the scale. It's funny, Libra's the scales, but tipping the scale. And I'm learning to balance that because I actually have a lot of Aries energy too. So I don't know,
including your Saturn, right?
Saturn,
Which is
Aries.
I made that face at like your boyfriend's parents both having Aries moons. Like, I mean, Saturn representing a blockage in your area and them having it fill their gas tank, like there's no way around it for them. Like they have to be like that.
Right.
And it will absolutely aggravate your blockage. And
yes,
like, is that not just like the best soul medicine that you could ever hope to receive? You know, aggravate the blockage, cross the boundary so you know where it's at.
Exactly. And that is exactly what has happened, which has been difficult, but like so eye-opening. Like I'm seeing myself much more clearly in ways I never have. Yeah. And I also discovered too, I did a little like comparison between my chart and my boyfriend's parents' charts. I was just curious because it's an interesting dynamic. And I discovered that oh geez. Okay. Now I'm forgetting it. But okay, so my boyfriend's dad has his south node at 1 degree Scorpio. That's my Chiron, 1 degree Scorpio. So basically all of who he is and his baggage that he's bringing to this life pushes my button so precisely, like with a needle, like the degree. 1 in Scorpio, which that's my only Scorpio, I think, is my Chiron. Like I have water energy, I have moon in the 8th house, and that's associated with Scorpio. But whew, I saw that and I was like, I feel like that explains some things, maybe. I think that explains a few things. And maybe there's some past life stuff there too, which I'd never really put that together.
I would say so.
For sure.
Like basically your wound, your Chiron and his past life experience, it almost like makes me think like he freaking put it there.
Yeah.
something to do with his pattern of energy put that wound in you. And like you coming together with him is like, again, your chance to claim it, your chance to like do what needs to be done, like
Right.
take care of yourself the way that, always we reach for, but
Right.
can't always make it all the way there.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah. And he's been one to really show me that, like, even not that it's improved. Like, it's not like I've been really working on it. It's more of like he's showing it to me, pushing that button, like literally exactly what Jodi said, crossing that boundary. It's essentially me crossing my own boundary because I'm going and being around him. And it's making me feel some type of way. And now I'm understanding what exactly that is and why and what it's trying to show me. And I think it's showing me my shadow, like my Chiron, but that's also your Chiron, your wounded healer. That's your gift. In many ways, that's a big piece of your gift. So yeah, it's sometimes painful to have to be shown that. Of course it is. It's Chiron. It's all about pain, but it's like not a bad thing. It's like the beauty that you can find in pain. I like that.
it's the self-empowerment.
Yeah,
The self-empowerment you can find in pain, I think.
definitely.
Yeah, as it transforms. I have Saturn on my ascendant in Gemini. And yeah, it's like it's a deterrent, as opposed to like it's a delay. It's a delay. So you will experience, I am experiencing in my second half of life, freedom from it. Like Saturn is Chronos, it's time. So over time, I've been able to speak it. Like it's been my second half of life helper. So like Saturn returns are a big deal for that reason. It gets to shift us. It gets to shift us from a blockage to an opening with wisdom, like through time. Like it helps us temper it, whatever we've gone too far with, it tempers it, and then it allows it to blossom in a like slower way. That's my experience of it. So the fact that you're just going through it now, I don't know when your Saturn return is, Maddie, but
pretty soon.
it's probably getting closer to the shift.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I'm 25, so it's coming up in the next couple of years, and it might even coincide. I'll have to see, because I'll have to see when Saturn will come exactly around to the degree it was in my chart. But yeah, it almost is like taking the struggles from earlier in your life, like the thing you've been struggling with for a long time. I've been doing a lot of research on Saturn, actually, because I'm just like really curious about its energy. And yeah, it's like it takes all those struggles and turns them into your strengths. And that's something that like takes time. It's a slow burn.
It is.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I have mine in Aries in the 4th house. So
okay.
It's all about like my self-identity, but in the realm of family.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And a lot of times, like they say, that's another good place to look if you're looking for like your gifts that you brought with you to this life. It's a good place to look in your natal chart, your Saturn, even though like that might be more of a slow burn, like your struggle that becomes your strength. Yeah, but I that's probably like this transitional phase I'm finding myself in, is like it feels like kind of Saturn is one of the wheels that's turning right now. For sure. I think it's going to be at the same time as my Chiron opposition. So that
I really want to look that up, because I have thought that so many
scared.
times. They're going to be at the same time, but I don't know that.
It'll probably end up being like great, like maybe bad things, or not bad things fall apart and then something even better can come together. But that kind of sounds like a lot for one time. Like,
It seems like it'll feel like a lot at that time. Like you'll feel it internally, but it like externally, the circumstances won't be like harsh. It feels to me like you'll feel like it's hard for you. Like you're afraid to burn people. And like Carly was saying, like
Yep.
you truly are a care bearer. Like you being mad in the moment is probably like barely like
It's probably
little
cute.
the little tiny little this.
Yeah.
Somebody else's like burn for you is probably just like a little tiny like pinch right here. It's
Yeah.
like, aw, understand.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me. You know, like
Yeah.
the response would be, thank you for telling me. I didn't know that about you.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm still tracking down the date.
What does it feel like, Maddie, when you want to speak up? I'm just curious, like without like your chart and stuff, like what's it first of all, what does it feel like when an Aries just like blasts their truth with you? And two, what does it feel like if you thought about saying something back on your
I have a specific example in my head of that. So in the example of an Aries blasting their truth at me, and then me having a dissenting opinion or something that I disagree. If I start to, this is one situation I'm thinking of, but like I feel it inside of me, like it's like this buzzing in my chest of like, I really want to say something, and usually I'm like, don't say it because that's not going to go over well or whatever it is. And this one time I just started saying it. I was like, well, this is what I think. And then basically it's like the Aries voice gets louder and tries to, it's like, being like in a classroom of little kids, and it's like one kid's screaming, the other kid needs to scream louder to get heard, and then the other kid needs to scream even louder to be heard, and then it's just so loud, and it almost turned into a screaming match, but without anger, of like the Aries voice just needed to be heard over everyone else, kind of like, I hear that you're talking, so I'll just talk louder.
You did this?
No, that was the Aries.
That's your experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of kind of what what I feel that I've received, and then in that case I kind of just like lower my voice, or I think I tried to keep up a little bit at one time, and then I kind of was just like, I'll step back. I'm usually like, I like to volunteer to be the first one to stand down, like I'll stand down, you can have this one. So it's kind of interesting, but like, yeah, that's the feeling of like this buzzing in my chest of like, I need to say something. I really want to say something. And then a lot of the time I just kind of shove that down depending on who I'm around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is interesting.
So I found on your chart, I'm not going to show it unless you want me to, or
You can.
do you care if it's on the
Sure.
recording? Okay. So these are transits from June of 2026, and we've overshot your Saturn return here by a few degrees. So I also looked at December of 2025 though, and Saturn was like all the way back here, like 5 degrees back into Pisces even. So it seems like it'll be like March-ish of 2026 is like your true Saturn return, like exactly. But at that time, like Neptune has made its way into Aries. Chiron will be like on the verge. I don't think that's, 2941. So it's like almost breaking into Taurus. So that will truly be like a little bit next, but also like the North Node going through Pisces will be your cross nodal return. So truly you'll have that first, and then the Saturn return, and then the Chiron opposition. So it's probably like a solid couple years that is like got all of that happening. So yeah.
Wow.
You got a lot going on, kind of all in the same general chapter of like 5 years,
5
because
years.
about that time, like, check this out, you got this guy cruising along heading for your Uranus, like, oh boy. So that'll be coming along as like a follow-up act, like, the second set of things will be Pluto transiting your Aquarius placements, which absolutely will be transformative. Like, I have my midheaven in Capricorn, and Pluto going over my midheaven. That's like my only, I guess it did go over my Neptune also is in Capricorn, but yeah, it's like from the ground up, like true Pluto style, like, yeah.
Do you mean rebuilding from the ground up?
Yes. Like if I look at like, well, I mean, if I look at when Pluto entered Capricorn, like back in 2008, like I was a college student. So, I mean, like considering like how my life changed during those transits, like, I mean, I had multiple careers, and the fact that it like went over my midheaven, I think makes a lot of sense that like they all had skills that I needed, but I did move through the phases of it and like built something, like started with nothing and built something. And I mean, it can be like that where, it's not necessarily that something's going to crumble in your life, right? It could be that you have a bunch of open space and you will build something from the ground up. So it's not necessarily to do with loss so much as just like building upon what you already got going on can
Definitely.
be.
And it feels like my participation in all of this energy happening in my life right now is almost this precursor of like, we can kind of get started on this work and chip away at these things, or you could procrastinate it and make it a really crazy time of, a lot of changes and transitions and stuff. But yeah, it almost feels like I'm being given the opportunity now to like get started on all that, like get a head start, because it feels like I had some big things planned for myself during this time of like, obviously depending on when you're born, like Carly, didn't you have your Chiron opposition when you were in like middle school or something? Like it's different for everyone. So I obviously planned mine to be at this age. And so like it makes sense that I feel this starting to rise up in me, and it's like, okay, let's get started. This path is starting now.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm headed. So I feel like it's exciting more than anything.
Good.
Yeah.
Yay.
Eventful. I'm sure it will be eventful. So I look forward to it. I'm hoping to be as open and receptive as I can starting now to all of it. Bring it on.
How do we be open and receptive and go with all the transits and be kind and co-create with it, as opposed to just like, oh, okay, let's hang on to the ride.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
It feels like that's a good question, because my first thought is like being actively engaged with it and like participating in it, rather than just like letting it all happen to you and being like, oh my God, what's happening to me? I guess like I don't really know exactly how to be an active participant in it.
Yeah.
But like, how does one do that?
Yeah.
How do you know? Yeah. I don't know. I feel like self-awareness is probably a big piece of like at least trying to keep an eye on the bigger picture of like, this is happening for a reason. I may not understand it right now, but I can trust that this is unfolding as it needs to. And I feel like that allows me to like participate in it more than I am hiding from it, of like, I don't know why all these crazy things are happening to me. Like, I don't know. That's something, I guess maybe that's something I'm going to be learning on this path, is like, how do I engage with this and like really get the most out of this time?
Yeah, and not like somehow be kind to ourselves during it. It's just like, how can we be the kindest to ourselves in any transition, in all transitions?
a good question.
It sounds so simple, but what keeps running through my head is expanding our tolerance for negative emotion.
Oh my God.
You have to do it. Like, you just have to get good at being in negative emotion. Like, there's no other way to not be a victim of the negative emotions, because they will not leave you alone. They're not going anywhere. You don't want them to go anywhere. You need those. They're
Right.
the hot stove, like the heat, the burn. Like, you need to know it's hurting you. You need to know to get away from it. Do
Right.
something different, make different choices. Like, yeah. But that being said, like, how do you do that? How do you expand your capacity for negative emotion? I mean, I think for me, the biggest one is like investing in your own basis of worthiness, to where the negative emotion is not you being broken. It's not anything being wrong with you. There is literally zero going wrong when you feel a negative emotion. It is a message. It's the low fuel tank on, or low fuel light on your dashboard. Like, it's just an indicator, and it's not like a reflection of you're good or you're worthy of love or whatever. Like, when I was in depression for so long, I really thought I was broken, and like that it was just something wrong with me was why I felt so awful all the time. And like, other people didn't feel as bad as me because I must be being punished for something I did awful in a past life, kind of thing. And like, I'm just a victim of, like, I feel like shit and I don't know what to do about it. And my biggest issue at that point was like literally no self-esteem, like no self-worth, like no self-love. Just, I did not like myself. And so every time I felt bad, I was like, see, this is your punishment for being a shitty human being. Like, these were the kinds of bullshit things I was telling to myself. And it made perfect sense at that point, because that was like my normal, that's where I was. And so it was like it was a lot. But I do think our sense of worthiness, and like that we are good, like
Yeah.
you're good even when you don't feel good, like creating that separation between you and your emotions, like they aren't your worthiness, they're your guidance. So like the worthiness has to be like whole all by itself. And then I think your tolerance for being with negative emotions, like it's not a judgment on you, it's not an attack, it's something for you to take and use productively. So
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
that's a really good question. Like a really good question. You're so good at that. That's like one of the that
I'm
you
curious.
inspire.
I'm curious. I'm just curious. What do you guys consider negative emotion?
I actually don't. That's like just how you would normally explain it to somebody else. But like, yeah,
Right.
What would be negative emotions, or how about uncomfortable emotions?
That's a good word. Definitely. Yeah. Because they're helpful regardless. So it's not negative.
What doesn't feel good? Like, some people may feel great in anger. They're like, yeah, this is my baseline. I'm doing anger. Like, this is, deal with it.
yeah, there's a lot of power in anger for sure. I think fear is my one. Guilt is another one, but like I said, I worked on it. Guilt is my teacher. I try to be tight with guilt. Yeah, but fear probably is like, you can loop around in fear for a long time. Thoughts of worry, or like the one that I'm in right now, that I'm like, the chapter I'm working on is, what if nobody signs up for my program? Like, what if nobody wants it, and blah 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 blah. Like, oh man, like getting a weak tired moment and like let that seed get going. And yeah, so I think that's probably one, is like fear. Like, you're afraid that something is going to happen or not happen or something. And so, yeah, I mean, get in my journal and like try to figure out, like, what are you actually afraid of here? And yeah, that's a worthwhile exercise, because it's not nobody signing up for my program. Like, that's not really the actual thing. It's that I'm not valuable. I'm afraid that I'm actually not valuable. And then I'm like, by the time you get to that level, I know that my value is not reflected by this program. My value is much larger than that. And so then you can help yourself to like, that fear is an illusion. It's like, it's haunting you. And when you turn into it and like, really, okay, little girl Carly, what are you afraid of? She's afraid that she's not going to get this validation and that that's going to mean she's not valuable. She doesn't know that we're already valuable. Like we're not working off the validation model anymore. That's okay. That's okay that you still are. That's fine. But yeah, she's scared. She's scared nobody's going to come play at our tea party. And it really like bums her out thinking about it. But it's okay. We're working on it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's so compassionate.
She's nervous, like for real. But she doesn't need to be, you know, like adult Carly, parent Carly, like tells her all kinds of things. And like mostly in my journal, like back and forth, kind of like not properly dialoguing back and forth, but a little bit like creating, like letting little girl Carly just like list raw fear. Like, what is it truly that you're worried is going to happen, that is going to be bad? Write it down. You don't have to edit it. You don't have to like worry about what it sounds like. Just what are you actually afraid of? And then basically, like without even really trying or meaning to, parent Carly is listening and she's responding, and like there's naturally a response. And so then you write down like why these fears, like I understand that you feel this way, but like we actually don't need to be afraid of these things because of this and this and this. And like the end of it was actually really beautiful and productive because I realized, like, basically came full circle to like my only locus of control in this situation is what I put into the course itself, like to the program itself, the content, the planning, the care and the thoughtfulness and the examples and the energy that I put into the course. That's what I can control. I can't control if anybody comes or not. That's not my sphere of influence. So like I journaled all of that, took me like 20-30 minutes, and then I opened my laptop and spent like 3 hours working on the first module, and I came up with all these ideas, and like it felt so good to like do something about what you can do something about. And like these fears that you're worried that this might happen, maybe nobody's going to come. But if they don't, like I have all this material that I can easily turn into videos. So like, it's really not even that big of a deal. Like you just pivot, we'll handle it, we'll figure it out. But she's scared. She's definitely nervous over here. So we got her, and she's, you know, she's working through her stuff. But yeah, fear is very uncomfortable and so easy to try to just like, my first instinct when I noticed that I was having that worry, I kept pushing it out of my brain, like think positive, or just like, you know, get in your journal, make a gratitude list, or like something to distract yourself. And I do that. I did it several times, like to kind of jump trains and get off the thought. But when it came back, like the 4th or 5th time, I was like, get the journal out. Like, what are you actually scared of? Like, you're poking me over and over and over and over, like little girl Carly, like pulling on my shirt, like I'm afraid, like I have something, it's scary in here, like can we address this please? Like, so we did. And then I worked on my course and it was great and felt really good to like add value to it, whether people come or not. Like that, I cannot do anything about it, but I can pour my heart into it no matter what. So I did, and that felt very empowered. So turning into the fear, I do feel like you find stuff in there that you didn't know right before, you know? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah. No.
Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for sharing all that. Like my palms are sweaty.
I'm sweaty.
Now I'm thinking of Eminem. Now the Eminem songs in my head.
The Eminem song.
Palms are sweaty.
Wait a minute.
You know it? No, okay.
No.
I'm not gonna say it.
You can sing it. Why don't you just go ahead and perform
I can't. No, I can't.
I can't. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. Don't make me do it.
I'm in Detroit. Detroit. Everyone says they're from Detroit when they're in Michigan, but it's far away. Anyway, Eminem's from whatever. Eminem's from Detroit. I like him.
Yes.
That's funny.
I know.
Forgot about
I like so much weird music. I mean, not weird, but all over the place. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think the fact that my palms are sweaty is because all of us can relate to that. All of us can relate to the story you just told. Maybe not in those specific details, but all of us are afraid of trying something new and putting our heart out there, like our heart work. There's certain things we can do that bypasses the heart. Like we can just stay in the mind and the intellect. I go there a lot. Like I'll just go into an intellect and I'll be like so pissed by the time I'm like spent so much time in intellect, like just, just moving my mind. And I'm just like, then my body's mad at me. I'm just like, and then I'm like mad at everybody and everything because my heart is out of it. But it's an easier space to be. It's so much easier because it's just mental. We can just ignore our bodies and our minds, but when we're doing work that cares for others, cares for ourselves, that we like feel passionate about, we feel it in our bones, like that's scary. That's like, but we can all relate to that. So what you just described is all of us trying something new. Whether it's speaking up in a conversation, whether it's building a brand new idea. I mean, entrepreneurial spirit is pioneering. That's hard. But so is giving birth to projects and sharing it with others. Like if we stay in our own little bubble and we're like, okay, I'm going to do my art and not show anybody. That's cool too. But once we get into that social arena,
sweaty.
Makes you sweaty. Yeah.
Same.
For real.
It is. And the fact that you listened to her and worked it out and like did the worst case scenario deal. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
For real.
For real. And then it's like, oh, well, I make it into videos. Like, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to address fear, which we all have. And it's caring for ourselves in each step of the way. And that's what's so like wonderful about you putting yourself out there. It's what those of us who resonate with that will come to. Like, she's real. Thank you. Thank you for not being like everything that's in the media that's like the perfect lifestyle crap. Like, we're over it. We're over it. We're over the shiny product.
Yeah.
So stupid. Like we want to connect. If we're going to utilize this stuff to connect with another human, let's be human about it.
Yeah.
So I have to just speak to it and say whoever signs up is also probably taking a chance in themselves to show themselves and come play. That may be the first time for them. It might not be. I've had some practice the last couple of years in different groups that I was the first time, talking with people this way, so you're not alone. Like, other people are going to be like coming up and being that, for them to be vulnerable and be themselves too is just beautiful. You're sharing that space. So whoever does come will be joined with you,
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I do feel like those, what we call like the negative emotions, most of the time are rooted in fear. If it's not just straight up fear, if you were to trace it back, it's probably where you'd land. I did this guided meditation the other day where the practice was to bring up the negative emotion in your body and, imagine what it was, a situation, whatever it is, bring it up and basically cradle it like a baby and imagine yourself. So it's kind of that inner child again, of that's sort of the voice of this fear is your inner child, and you can hold them and comfort them. And like that emotion itself, just holding it and being there to witness it and saying like, not necessarily like, oh, it's going to be okay, because sometimes that's not very soothing. But just like, I hear you and I see you and I understand where you're coming from. And like together we will be okay because I'm here. That's something I'm learning too, is to really be there for my inner child, because I just don't think I have been. I've been putting myself in a lot of situations that makes my inner child feel very fearful. And then I ignore the fear. And it's very real, and it's something that can really hold us back. So I think that's Carly's example. I thought that was really good, of journaling it and like, let your inner child just, raw fears, list them out. Let's hear them. Like, just be seen, be heard. I think that's powerful. And like many of us don't do that because I guess like we don't really know how. We weren't taught to do that. It's not something you normally think to do necessarily, but yeah, like I think that's a really good example of what you can do, to just listen. Let those fears be heard, because that's like why they're poking at you, is because they want to be heard. Yeah. It's like, hey, I see you're doing this thing and like I'm really scared about it. Can we talk? It's like, yeah, let's talk.
Right? Like my initial reaction was, I don't want to be afraid. Basically, like I don't want to feel this way. I was like a teensy bit ashamed that I was like, because I had been so confident, been having like visions of how good it's going to be and like all of that. And this was also on a day when I was like irritated with the world. And as I wrote that, it was like, wait, is my period about to start? Yes. It was like, okay, this is part of all of that. But yeah, like my initial reaction was totally to reject little girl Carly. I don't want to feel that way. No, I don't want to be afraid. I'm not afraid. Yes, you are. Like, and she came back over and over and over until I let her talk to me. And of course, now I'm not going to find it, which is fine. Yeah, it was very simple. It was like one page of her telling me what she was afraid of and parent Carly reacting to each of those fears. Like, there's a solution for all of these things. Like, none of this is anything we can't handle. And I think the part of it that was most interesting to me was like how, like, all the solutions, I know these things. Like, I already knew all the solutions, but she didn't.
Yeah.
Little girl Carly did not have access to those solutions, and she was scared, and she did feel better after I told her the solution. So like, it showed me how much I just assume that because it's like all inside of me, that like all of me knows all the pieces of me. And she was separate in that moment. Like, she did not know that, you know, this and this and this and this, the reasons why we're not actually not scared of those things. So yeah, like, you may think it sounds weird to have to tell yourself the solutions, but like, if you're afraid, there's part of you who really does think that there's something bad that could happen and that it's going to negatively impact you. And that fear is coming from somewhere. It's justified somewhere in you.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's so loving. It's true. We all do share it, and we all like, distraction is a big thing. Like, we're like, oh, I'm not gonna look at fear. I'm gonna distract myself. Oh, we're not gonna look at that. No. No. We've got this going on. Oh no.
Well, and just like tell yourself in the moment, it'll be fine. Like, no, you don't, like, I don't have to be afraid. Like, it'll be fine. It's gonna be so good. And like, try to just like fake it till you make it kind of thing. I'm like, that is like one of the most toxic things that you can do. Like, just slap a mask on it. It'll be fine. Like, no,
Right.
no, it won't be.
Right.
Because you know what? If I hadn't addressed that, if I had just like powered forward and then like the group was small or whatever, like in my thing, I would have like been crushed by that. you know, like it would have meant something that little girl Carly was thinking it meant. And like unraveling that with her so that we were both on the same page, like the size of the audience at this has nothing to do with how much we deserve love. Like we're good to go. So like this is just for fun. This is just to try to tell people some information that might be valuable to them. Like that's all this is. Like you don't have to worry that they're going to take away your lovable card like if nobody signs up. Like that's not what this is. So yeah, she's doing much better in the aftermath of that conversation.
That's
Good. And she'll probably come back. Like they always come back. I mean, it always comes back in different situations. I even connecting with you too, because I'm so like I feel such a heart connection with you, and it feels so good, and I'm just like, oh. And then even with that, like because it's social and because I'm putting myself out there in a more vulnerable kind of way, like I was having a thoughts, like when I posted a video or response to you two, or just any of my thoughts, and I'm in a couple different communities where I do the same thing. Like I'll put myself out there, and then this voice will come to me and be like, this isn't gonna last long, or like you're gonna offend somebody, or you know, they're just gonna get sick of you. Like those
I'm laughing because I feel it. It's true.
Yeah.
and it's like they're not gonna understand. Like, or just like you're being spontaneous again. Don't do that. Like it's like it will just come out of nowhere. And then if I don't feel like sitting and journaling, like I'm just like, all right, I have other things to do. And then the other day I said, all right, I'm not going to stop, you know, like going into communities that I feel loving about. So what do you have for me? Like I was irritated. I was like, what's your message? Like, even if it wasn't like, you know, like, do you have something to say? Go ahead.
Right.
Like, what do you need? And it's like, well, you've been shunned before for being spontaneous. Your comedy has gone too far. Like you get darker, like you're offending people. Like, you know, when you do this, and I'm like, well, I get it. At the same time, there are others who feel like us. It's okay. Like, not alone. Like you had said earlier, Maddie, like you're not alone. Like there are others who feel this way. And maybe we should come together and talk about it. And then just like, can you settle down a little?
No,
Totally.
no. That wound is in there from
It's
like
in there. It's in there. And it will
and
keep coming
receipts.
up. And I'm just like, and there are times where I'm like more loving. There are times where I'm just like, okay, I get it. We've done this. We've been there. We experienced this. But that doesn't mean this situation won't repeat itself. And if it does, we have the skills to talk about it with another. Doesn't even have to be just with us, you know? And not everyone's gonna like you, so what? You don't like everybody else either.
Remind myself that sometimes. Like, doesn't work that way. I don't
That
think
reminds me of a quote when I was very first like on my self-awareness journey that was something like, you know, you always walk into a room wondering if they're going to like you. Why not walk in wondering if you're going to like them? And I was like, okay, maybe I could try that. Yeah. But yeah. And I forget. Oh, I was going to say something else. I don't remember. Nope, it's gone.
maybe it will come back.
Not meant to be in that moment.
Yes.
Oh, the friends thing in general. So like the Chiron that you guys have in common, the 11th house Chiron, and mine is in the 3rd house. And those are social houses, but in slightly different ways, obviously. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense that like basically all 3 of us have told stories at one point or another about how friends, like just the concept of having friends is like a whole territory of like wounding and potential healing and like all kinds of things. And I do think that like that is something about the people who tend to gravitate to what I'm saying. Like we tend to have this in common, this whole like, I'm just not good at having friends. And yet here we are, multiple of us showing up in the same spot to like be friends with each other. And it's like, as we've gotten into this, I'm just going to like own this 100%. Having friends, especially in a 3-way friendship where there's 3 people involved, is extremely triggering to me. I've learned it has brought up a lot of stuff for me to process that are reminding me of like shit from like fucking 2nd grade and like 7th grade, and my 2nd year at college was pretty bad. And like I've had like multiple scenarios where like again it's bringing up guilt mostly over how I acted in these situations, and like at the same time also bringing compassion because I feel guilty for the way I acted, but I'm also compassionate that I can see where the tendency to act like that is coming from like a self-protective, like wounded part of me that is acting this out. And it did so unconsciously, like all of those times I mentioned. And in this scenario, I'm not unconscious of it. I'm watching it rise to the surface, and having friends is triggering. Like it just is like, it's an interpersonal dynamic. It's like no different, I think, than having a relationship when you come together with other people and you allow them to get close to you. Like, I think the biggest fear is, like you said, like this isn't going to last very long, or you're going to say something to make it end, or like you do like it and then you're going to lose it. Like it's like attachment, basically. Like you like it so much that you're worried that it's going to like fall apart, and that mostly it'll be your fault because, of course, why wouldn't it be? Yeah.
All of our fault.
Sure. Yeah. Each of us individually.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just all gonna own that. But for real, it's like, it's crazy how I think the healing journey is like that in general, where like you walk into somewhere because you love it and you want to be there, and then watch how fast, like it almost no time at all to like bring your shit to the surface with the thing that you love. Like you wanted it. It was, you got what you wanted, and like, oh, it was just another healing lesson, like they all are, basically. Yeah.
Totally.
So it's been interesting, for real.
What have you been doing to work with it?
Kind of the same process of like letting it talk, like letting it have a voice, to like write it in my journal. Like the way that I'm noticing it is like my urge or my impulse is to do XYZ behavior. And in the reaching to like go do that behavior, I notice I'm like, wait, why are you doing that? Like, that seems weird. This whole line of thought, this whole like, you're going to go do that. That's weird. And so even just sitting with like, why do you want to do that thing? And like, why do you feel the need to like, it gets really complicated to try to explain it and like not like just put it all like all the pieces out there. But yeah, like it kind of also is very interesting in how it does tie back into my jealousy issues. It has like provoked something like that's even reminiscent of like more like my Pluto in the 7th house, of like how I can get possessive in like a relationship, again, where it comes from a place of like, you like it so much, the thought of losing it can like make you a little unstable. So yeah, it's been like really fascinating to give it a voice. What are you worried about? Like, what is the fear? Like, what is the worst case scenario of what you think could happen here? And journaling it out was incredibly interesting as far as like, yeah, it was very reminiscent of like second grade, seventh grade, second year of college. Like there were all of these different times where like it basically becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of like you're fighting against that thing happening, and then that's exactly what happens. So it's like it feels like a chance to like be more conscious, bring my leading edge consciousness into a friendship space. And I don't have to shame myself for like having weird impulses and weird leftover urges that like want to do weird things. It's like you can just kind of be with that and be like, why do you want to do that thing? And it's like, well, I had a reason. And like when you sit with it, it's like, no, but the real reason you want to do the thing is because you're worried that this other thing is going to happen and you're trying to keep it from happening. You're trying to control the situation rather than just letting it unfold. Let it be whatever it's going to be,
Right.
And it's crazy. Yeah.
It makes sense.
It makes so much sense. So much sense. Yeah, it makes so much sense. I've been feeling old patterns come up too, where I'm just like, I want to like put all my energy into like, I want to do this, or I want to like, yeah, not control the situation, but make sure that everyone's okay, and then make sure I'm okay. Like just old patterns that are coming up. And then I'm like, wait a second, this can happen organically. It's okay. It's okay, it can happen organically. And then just kind of like an energetic putting back. And then like, I'm like, how can I, the way that I've been working with it is like, how can I shift my energy to more abundance, to more like spread it out as opposed to like focus in, like, oh my God, I love these people. I want to know everything. Like, I'm going to share everything. And that when I go there, I'm like, okay, we're in time. Time has to unfold. Takes time to intermix and see what's what with whomever and let it unfold. And then I'll be like, it's like the breathing thing. I'm just like, okay, I have nature, I have my life here. Like just moving the point of focus to this like love. To like, okay, chill, like just move the energy back. I've been like, just move it back and let it go. Some things land, some things don't. It's life, that's how I've been working with it. And it's felt really good.
That's super helpful.
Totally. Yeah. For me, it's like just the act of allowing myself to express anything in the space of like friendship and other people and like sisterhood, especially because like I know that it's been a problem for me having female friends through the years of like just feeling in competition and feeling like I compare myself to other women, and that making it really hard to have friendships where I feel comfortable just being open and being myself and feeling like there's no competition. And like I feel like it definitely, I don't feel like competition with you guys necessarily, but I can relate to like the feeling of jealousy, like you brought up, Carly, of that being a thing I have experienced in friendships, specifically like with women, and feeling that like how women are just so often like set up against each other. And like that's the way I've approached relationships with like female friends a lot. And so it's hard like to be in this space now. It's like, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want, or like we're not in competition, and this feels more like a union. And so it's like, okay, now that I have that feeling of comfort of like we're together, not against each other, how can I express myself? And then I've been open about it with you guys of like everything that comes up of like, oh my God, I'm wasting their time. Like they don't want to hear from me. Like they don't want to hear my personal problems. This is way too much. Like I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't put this on them. all of those things of feeling like I'm just a burden, to like my feelings are burdensome basically, and working with that of like, isn't that, if that's not what friendship is, I won't say like putting your burdens on people is not friendship, but like that's part of friendship, is having that support from other people, and like other people making you see and feel that you don't have to do it alone, and making you feel comfortable enough to just kind of relax into whatever you're going through and be open about it. And I felt that in this space, like the struggle of like wanting to do that and then feeling like, oh man, I don't really have a lot of experience with that. How do I do this? And just kind of pushing through that discomfort and doing it anyway. And I'm like, well, if they decide that this is too much and they don't want to hear about, you know, my stuff or whatever it is, then they don't have to respond, or like they can just walk away, or maybe they won't want to be my friend. And I'm just going to be willing to let that be a potential outcome. And I'm going to detach and I'm going to just do it. And like, look, here we are. So here we still are. And often that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
there's
each
oh, go ahead.
oh we
No,
each described similar yet different voices in our heads, the old ways of being, and we all have had a breakthrough in a way about like how we're feeling, like holding ourselves differently or giving ourselves space and room to feel it, and like attempt it anyway. I want to say like, yay,
right?
good for us.
Really?
Because like that's probably like one of my more solid pieces of conditioning from my childhood, is watching my parents like struggle in their own adult friendships, and like having circumstances over the years where they felt betrayed by friends, and so like those relationships fall apart, fine, but they also adopt the conclusion that friends will stab you in the back and they'll screw you over and they'll blah 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 blah. So like don't trust them. Like you really, just people in general, just go ahead and don't trust them. So like that's part of like my training, is that. And so I think, you know, that probably I brought some of this with me, and I think that's a piece of it too, because I think naturally I do have like a tendency to fear losing the people close to me. And so it gets really, you know, dicey when I'm like, oh gosh, am I about to lose them? Like, do I need to try to like sabotage their friendship so that they don't run away without me? Like, dude, like it's bringing up like there was this one post where I saw, like back when I still use Facebook, where it's like, what's the most toxic zodiac sign you've ever dated? And I was like, it's Gemini. It's me. I was the toxic. Like absolutely. Like they weren't toxic. I was. Like that was the problem. And bless them for putting up with me as long as they did. But yeah, it's like bringing that kind of like, I mean, relationships are healing ground anyway. And I love that we all like are coming to it with slightly different wounds and patterns, and that like through this like triangle of a friendship, like we all get the piece that we need to like bring our patterns to the surface, and like, you know, work on, like you said, like holding ourselves in a new way, you know, like don't have to make it not be a thing, but like, yeah, how are you going to respond to it differently? Like bring some critical self-awareness to like, why are you doing that? Why do you feel the need to do what you're about to do here? Maybe get in your journal and explore that just a little bit before we pull the trigger on what it is that you were thinking. Because again, yeah, it's like motivated by fear. And instead of looking at the fear, you just do the thing. And it's like, yeah, then the fear just perpetuates itself and you get some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy happening. So yeah, it's fascinating to just be in the world, you know, friendship, yes, but like everything around one giant lesson.
It is. I recently discovered that Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, you know who he is?
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's on YouTube. I didn't know that. Like I watched him when he was on TV or whatever. He's like, I remember watching him and listening to him and thinking like he's doing energy. Like
Mhm.
he's working with their energy. Like, and now he's transformed so much. Like if you just watch any of his new videos, they're very profound. And he's going into like philosophy and energy and thinking in terms of the animals as opposed to putting our human traits on them, or our training. He said the dogs are like nose, then nose, then body, then mind. Like sounds are the last thing that they work with. So he doesn't, and he said people are like, oh, dogs, like they come up and they raise the energy. And he's saying you come when you approach an animal, if it's an elephant, dog, anybody, you center your energy first. And the first thing you do when you are with them is bring a calm before you even approach. Like calm. Like before you even, first of all, you let the dog come to you, which that's very difficult for active us.
Yeah.
And he said, then when they come, you're working with their nervous systems. And I was just like, gosh, however we were raised, that it probably was not like that unless you're one of the special few who have had a family that deals with energy and the energy of the nervous system. Like when we approach each other or when we receive each other, like how often do we get into that grounded, like, and then how often do I like get pulled into a thing of chaos and I don't pull myself back out and be, like, okay, time to do it again. It just feels like a new way of being in the world. Like if we go energy first, then the thoughts and that stuff, it's going to come, and feelings, they're going to come too, but like energy first. It's very new and unique. Like if we have relationships that are energy first and we're working with our own energy and with each other, let's face it, that's not the norm. And like those haven't been our experiences up till now. And if we can work with that consciously and we're working with each other's nervous systems, and the nervous system, there's something called co-regulation, like in our family. And then even right now, the three of us are co-regulating with each other. Our nervous systems are. Like from that place of safety, lots of fun can happen. But like the foundation first. So like all of our wounds and everything happened from a lack of safety, a lack of energetic awareness. So this feels special for that reason.
And many others. Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Lots of reasons.
So yeah, I have so many thoughts. It did remind me, specifically talking about Caesar Milan. I had seen this clip on YouTube from an old episode of The Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry, and he like did a reading for Caesar and his family, like his kids, and the person that came through was actually like his like first family dog, I guess. So like the kids knew him and everything, and this energy came through as this just highly intelligent, evolved being who, I mean, I'm sure like probably Caesar learned a lot from him about how energy works and stuff, because this dog was like some, like, you know, not just any old dog. Like it was like a special energy that had come through and probably shown him those lessons, and just very interesting. It was interesting, like just such a wise intelligence came through that was like this dog that he'd had. It was very interesting. Yeah. And it's just so interesting what you said about like starting with energy, and especially thinking about dogs and how they kind of like circle each other and they smell each other, and like that's what dogs do when they first meet each other. They're like sniffing each other's butts, and they get to know a lot about each other that way. And usually when I meet a dog, I'll like hold my hand out and be like, sniff my hand, I'm your friend, like we can be friends. And that's usually where I want to start, because I don't want to overwhelm it. And I was like, wait, no one ever held their hand out to me and was like, sniff my hand, see if you feel okay or safe around me. Like I spent a lot of my childhood especially feeling overwhelmed, and I didn't really get it. Like I didn't get that people were in my space and invading my energy, like when I didn't feel safe yet. And so that's very interesting. Like maybe if somebody had approached me a little more gently, held their hand out, let me come to them.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder if that would have been different. And, you know, I don't regret anything. Like I could start treating myself that way now, but I just think that's a really interesting concept of starting from that place of energy first.
Yeah.
And even just to feel back into like, what is the energy that I'm sending with what it is that I'm saying, you know, like pretty much every time I send you guys a video, I record it like multiple times because of the whole, like I get bored with my own story thing. And so it's like, that's been another reason that it's been so fun to like send the videos back and forth, because I feel like I get to explore like on the leading edge of my story. Like, who am I right now? And am I representing that, or am I like still telling an old story or whatever? So yeah, it's like engaging like that. I feel like you have to, or I have to slow down. Like the pace at which the rest of the world moves, like there's just not time to like go get in your energy and like see what's in there. Like it's just, no, you got to like respond like right now. It's like, no, I mean, I love how like, I mean, even just in the month since we met last time, like, I mean, maybe I sent like 2 videos or 3. Like the pace was very like, receive the message, sleep on it for a couple days, make your response, like send some love. Like it's not a like go like churn it out as fast as you possibly can. It's like quality over quantity. And I personally am like a big fan of what we got going on here, and the whole energy first idea of like, that's really where I'm coming from on like even just recognizing these shadow patterns of like, where are you coming from with what it is that you feel like you need to say? Like, why do you feel like you need to say that? Like, what's happening here? Because I also recognize in myself defensiveness, where like, you know, it kind of goes back to where we started like earlier on, Jodi, with like, you know, when you think your friend aligns with you and like you think you guys all believe the same thing, and then you find out you don't believe the same thing I believe, and then it's like, man, like no, get away. Like, but it's like, no, we don't have to believe the same thing. And yet when those differences show themselves, there is defensiveness that rises inside me. So then I'm like, where is that coming from? Like, why does that make you defensive? You know, and it's just more journeys for my journal pages. But yeah, it's like just even just being in relationship with other people, like letting them into your heart space, especially like letting them actually know you. It's like, yeah, I mean, they're getting in there. Like all your little tender spots are gonna get lit up. That's a good thing, you know, if you're ready for it. So
in likelihood, I can just say this for now, the likelihood of me like I would be open to like whatever, like if like I would be open to hearing what ruffled you, you know, for real.
it's a funny example because it's like, again, when I really tried to think like, why does that bother me? I think it just goes back to my core shadow work issue of like being told that you're wrong, like
course.
just like, somebody implying that you would be wrong. So, okay, so I have to tell just like one little bit. I'll tell you what it was because I think I've worked through it. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But Jodi was talking about her house, your house, that like, don't ever buy a house. That was like the message. I own this house. So like I'm a homeowner. It was like no, like that's totally fine. Like I totally good, all good. And like well meaning enough, like it's a headache to own a house. Like you're the one responsible, blah, blah, blah. Like that was the general message, like no harm done. And yet it was like, I'm a homeowner. Am I wrong? Am I doing it wrong? Should I not have bought this? So like it was so crazy, like how the defensiveness, the self-doubt, the just even having someone that you respect, that you like, especially like have an opinion that like basically contradicts your own, like it absolutely prompts that you have to go back through your opinion. You have to, like, do you still believe what you believed, or do you see what they're saying? Do you agree with that? Like, at least for me, this is like the territory, the invitation that I felt called into. And it was good, like in the long run, because it forced me to ask myself, like, are you glad you bought this house? Do you have regrets? Would you, do it differently if you could? And no, like I wouldn't. And that little bit of soul searching and like deepening into that was fine. Like it felt good after I processed it, but it was so innocent on your part. Like you're obviously not trying to offend anybody or trigger anybody. And yet like that, those kinds of experiences, like when you step into friendship, like, I mean, that's just the territory. It's like I said at the beginning, like you only cross your boundary if you're ready to be triggered. Like if you are ready to let somebody into your space, which means they very well could potentially step on one of your buttons. And like, are you ready for that?
Totally. So glad you said that. So funny. Yeah, I think we're all so sensitive, like for what we say and what we hear. We're so sensitive that a statement like that could like will like like it's just it's interesting. And after I said it, it's funny, like I kind of like things that I say in videos too, I'll be like, why'd you say that? Or like, are you not grateful for your house? Like, why are you telling other people what to do? Like, this is me doing like, and then I'm like, wait, Carly said so many good things on her first video. I have to rewatch that. I didn't respond to her. Damn it, I didn't. She had good questions and I didn't. Like all of our sensitivity, like not everybody does this. Like Aries are not doing
Really?
this. I don't think Aries are doing this. I don't think Aries are rethinking their responses. I don't know. I could be wrong. But it's so funny how we're all like, we're so sensitive that kind of stuff. And I'm like, all we have to say is like, this is what I would like, just tell me. Like, you know what I mean? Just say it. And then like, oh, oops, sorry. And then I was like, why am I telling people what to do? Why am I not grateful for my house? This is really a blessing to have a house. What do I do? Like, that's me.
Sounds like we all got something out of that monologue.
Totally. It's so funny. Isn't it funny? It's so funny.
That we can laugh about it, that like I can say, okay, so that was one of them. And in that same video, there was another one. And that one was even more interesting and deep in there. It was like basically talking about enmeshment, like with your family, like if you're like a really deep integral part of your family as an adult, that like I forget exactly how you worded it, but like basically that, you're kind of stuck in there, like that it's not optimal for like growing into your full individual self kind of thing. And so anyways, like that one, obviously I don't live with my parents. I'm not enmeshed in my family. And yet I was still defensive on behalf of my brothers, who are absolutely man children, who like they lived in my parents' house until like late 20s, when they built a house that all three of them owned together, so they could all like have 3 master bedrooms in this house where they all live together. And that's where 2 of them still live, 2 out of the 3. So it like really got me thinking, like, why are you defensive about that? Like, this isn't even you. Like, this isn't even like you taking offense. This is like her implying something about them over there, which she's not doing. She's giving her opinion about a completely unrelated situation. And yet I got shoved in there. Like, why do you feel this way? And I think it was really interesting, because what I came to as far as like unraveling that for a little bit was like a softening, like a forgiveness almost of my brothers for who they are and where they are. And basically what I came to is like, I don't think it's necessarily unhealthy to be in that situation, but I do think that there is a certain point of like your consciousness evolving where you cannot do the evolution and stay in that situation at the same time, but that for who they are and where they are on their soul's journey, they're like little baby souls. The support that my parents provide to them, like the structure, not the financial support or anything, but just like the day-to-day structure, they also work for my parents. That was a part I missed. They're enmeshed. Like they live across the road. They work for my parents. They are like, they're a unit. And so it's like, they're where they need to be. Like none of them, I mean, technically one of them now lives with his girlfriend, but the other 2 like have no desire for a relationship. They have no desire for a family. They're like in their early 30s now, and they're like happy where they are. And it's like, I used to have such a like, almost like I felt misunderstood because they were so different from how I wanted to do it, that like it made me defensive that like they're doing it differently or whatever. And so to like really look at that and be like, they are where they need to be. That doesn't mean that that's where I need to be, but like they can be there. I'm okay with that. They can do whatever they need. They need more support. They're not ready to fly the nest. None of my business. But yeah, that was like another one. Like,
that's
I was
so
like, you need to go to bed. Like you're just in a triggerable mood today, apparently.
it's amazing how that can happen. It's amazing. It is amazing. I get it. This is good for me to hear too, because sometimes I'll have an authoritative voice when I'm speaking to one person about one specific thing. Like my intention is to give them freedom, like with more information with one specific person, but internally, I don't feel like it's across the board. But sometimes I think the way that I state it is like, this is the truth. And everybody, like, I don't mean it that way at all. When I'm talking to people, it's specifically to their situation and like, hey, what about possibly this going on? But that's good for me to know, like, that that's a sensitivity in how people take statements as on them when I don't mean it that way. I think I have a very interesting way of working with paradigms and information, because I put it on like a onesie. Like if you say something, I'm like, I'll try that on like a onesie. And I'll play with it for like a couple weeks. And then I'll be like, nah, I gotta take this off. I'm switching to another onesie. That didn't work. But I don't know. I don't.
I love
funny.
that visual. Yeah.
That's a good one.
But I don't let everyone else's truth in personally. But I don't know that all of us, that's probably not a lot of people are like, I don't know if I've always done that. I think I have always done that, but I think that that's unique. I think when we're searching for truth, and like people with experience, we're probably like, oh, that's the truth that I should probably, that's a truth I should do or not do. I guess I have done that with like vegans. I've been like, they know something that I don't know, or they have support I don't know, or like they're like, I don't know. I guess that has happened to me. So it's good to hear it. It's good to hear that the way that I said something or the way that I expressed something was like meant to be across the board when that's not my intention. So I like hearing that.
Good. Very good.
I feel like such a good point about sometimes, like, you know, we've all mentioned like a fear of offending people. And like, I think it just goes to show that a lot of the time, like when we do, like if you end up triggering something in someone, it literally has nothing to do with you. It's like, it's all like things come up in us. Like sometimes I got triggered by something really random the other day that I was like, it was bringing all these things up within me. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with the actual thing and everything to do with all these little pieces inside of me that are being brought up. And so it's like a lot of the time when you do end up triggering someone, it's like you literally did nothing wrong. And like it probably triggered something for the best, actually. Like if it triggered something, then like it sounds like Carly, it sounds like you had some really good contemplations on things that like it sounded really productive. And yeah, like I have such a fear of when I communicate that I'm not going to be able to say, that I'm not going to be able to transfer what's in my head and my heart into words in a complete way where like maybe I'll be saying something that comes off like a blanket statement when I know in my heart I'm just talking about this one situation. And then the way I say it makes it sound like I'm talking about everybody and I don't mean it that way. And it's like sometimes that holds me back from speaking in the first place because I'm like, if I can't say it in its wholeness, then maybe I shouldn't say it at all. But I don't think that's true. Because like we're never going to be able to say, like, unless we become telepathic beings, I don't think we're going to be able to communicate in complete wholeness while we're using words. Yeah. You know, like we just can't. And I think it's helpful to be understanding of each other for that, of like, sometimes we say things and it's like, oh yeah, like it came off that way, but really in my head I knew and I just didn't communicate that part.
Right.
And I have a huge worry about that. Such a huge worry because a lot of the time I'll make my video for you guys or something and then I end it and I'm like, this, and this. Should have said those things. I said that so unclearly, like that didn't make sense. And all these things come up of like, oh, if I didn't include that piece and now it's not whole, it's not complete and it won't make sense. But a lot, I mean, as far as I understand, like I think that I have been making sense. Like Jodi, in the last video, you specifically said that like I came off as articulate. And I was like, that was like one of the first things I said when I ended that video. I was like, that was not articulate at all. That was how I felt. And so it's just so interesting. And then you come in and say, wow, that was so articulate. And it's like, wait a second. What? So yeah, like I don't want to let that hold me back either. And yeah, so interesting.
And I'd like to say that I'll give you grace. Like even if I'm offended and like even if I want to like get clarification on it, I'm giving you grace. And I request it too. I request grace also because my intention is I know good, but I also want to learn. Like I do learn how to communicate in a way that's more compassionate to many. So I'm open to both, you know?
Well, and that's where, like, going back to what you said, Maddie, about like when it's time for like this thing to be triggered in me, you just it's a musical chairs game. Like you just happen to be the person who was like here at the right time kind of thing. Because especially like well, I guess kind of both of them, but like a bigger unfolding this whole last couple weeks. Like I watched this documentary about the spiritual teacher and there's been a lot unfolding around me figuring out like how to tell my story, how to share what I know is my truth in this moment and do it, like you're saying, like in a way where the intention is very clear that like this is my truth And like, that is the end of what this is. Like, this is not meant to be a prescription. This is not meant to be like your truth or your answer. And that was mostly from the documentary, not this message, but that's just like how it fit into like that trigger was part of like a way bigger unfolding, like all kind of happening at the same time around like there is such scrutiny on spiritual coaches and like the spiritual industry in general because it's so unregulated to like people can make lots of claims and like it's almost impossible to prove it or back it up or whatever. And I'm like, it's more important than ever to be crystal clear on this is not universal truth. This is my truth in this moment. And like, I can get on a soapbox too, where I can start talking about this is how it is. And it's like this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I lose track of the language and the packaging of like, this is how my life is. And this is how my experience is. And when this comes up in me, my response is like this. And like to just code it in language that's like, no, this is my truth that I'm putting out there. So like, this is something that I'm practicing myself, like in the background, that all of this is so helpful, like mirrors, you know, like you guys are just mirrors for me and vice versa. So yeah, it is interesting, like how we all have Chiron, like in social houses, and being in friendship, like brings up a lot for sure.
Yeah.
It's a healing territory. And also helps me understand like why it's been so painful in the past, because every friendship I've ever been in, it's been trying to get me into this healing territory where I'm like owning my shadows and healing my patterns and like all of that. And I mean, clearly for most of my life, like I wasn't ready. I was blaming it on them and moving on with my life. And I didn't get anywhere with that, except a bunch of broken friendships behind me, you know, friendships that don't last.
Litter. Just litter.
Just a whole trail of them.
Yes.
A whole trail of failed relationships that like, you know, I learned though from all of them that like I am my own worst enemy when it comes to keeping and having friends. So I feel like that's what gives us the safety of this space, is like we're all clear on like owning our own emotions. Like when you trigger me, I'm not mad at you at all, like at all, because I understand like you just helped me to see this thing that is clearly already in there. Otherwise it wouldn't have immediately sent something off. So yeah, that's helpful. But like, oh, my friend triggered me and I'm so mad and we need to figure this out. And like, what did you mean when you said that? And why did you say that to me? And like, that'll like end your friendship real quick, you know? Yeah.
It can. I mean, unless we ask each other, hey, do you have time to like process whatever, blah, blah, blah with me? You know,
It's like the dog thing. Like when you just go up to them and you just like pour a bunch of stuff on them and they're like,
dude, I didn't get any sleep. I was up till 4. Like, can you give me 2 days?
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Give me 2 days and I'm there.
Yeah. Well, and usually like if you sit with it long enough, it's like you can find why this is your thing. Like why this has nothing to do with what they said. Like that was just a gateway to get into the thing. And yeah. So it kind of like lets the air out of the balloon as far as like, there's really like, I wasn't going to bring it up because like there really isn't anything to say. You know, I got what I needed out of it. Great. Moving on. Like,
yeah, but it's good. It is. I'm glad you did bring it up because there's value in that as well. I mean, that could be part of our healing, is like hearing another, you know, voice saying back, hey, that's cool that you felt that way and were process those things.
Yeah.
And also thank you for telling me.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd be so cool, but again, you're inspiring me to like to reach for that, you know, like, because it is one of my biggest fears to like trigger people or like offend them or piss them off. So to like hear that something I said was like set them off a little bit, like, yeah, that's one of my other common shadow work things. But yeah, good job.
That's why it like feels really good to just talk about that openly. Honestly, that feels like really good. because like I normally wouldn't think of like telling somebody what thing they said triggered me and what it brought up in me, because I don't want to offend them. It's like it's all this like, ooh, I don't want to ruffle anyone's feathers.
I
Like,
want you to feel uncomfortable. Like, don't feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't need you to feel uncomfortable. Like, I did, but I don't need you to.
like,
Like,
yeah,
I don't want to look at your discomfort and like, I don't want to look at your discomfort and then have to deal with that too.
yeah, it just like feels good to take the discomfort and like put it out into the light where everyone can see it. And it's like, yeah, it's there. And everyone else is like, oh wait, you too? Like, oh, me too. Let me bring mine out of the closet. Like, it's been there in the darkness. And sometimes like that feels good to me, to just be open about that. And it just kind of like takes some of the power out of it, for sure, of that uncomfortable feeling, because you're like sharing it.
Yeah.
And it's like not personal towards anyone, neither the person who triggered or the person who got triggered, you know, like not personal at all. It's just we're all a little uncomfortable, and like that's reality, you know, and that's what happens, especially like you said, us with our Chiron placements. It's interacting with other people and being in these spaces of friendship. So interesting. It does bring up so much.
It's a very vulnerable territory.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, bring up a lot of schoolyard memories of like, nobody wants to play with me. They're all playing with her. Why don't they want to play with me? Yeah, dude. Like, those things, they hurt. They hurt. And that's where, yeah, by the time I come around to like inner child work, it's like I got 33 years worth of stuff in there that got to come out. And like so much of it, I'm realizing like through this, that so much of it has to do with like the interpersonal friendship kind of dynamics of like feeling like, again, like I was the toxic one in those situations. And there's a lot to be ashamed of around that. But at the same time, like, I can't do anything about it. And like you said, like bringing it out into the light even is empowering to like, I'm not going to hold that over myself. I'm not going to be like, you don't deserve friends because you weren't a good one before. Like, I can try and I can, do better. And yeah, it's like a whole thing. Mm.
Yeah,
That feels good.
it does. And even the story of like, I was the toxic one or I was the harsh one or whatever. It's like, probably not. Probably not.
My little guy on my shoulder, he's like, no, you definitely were.
I mean, you have, there's always, it takes two or more to tango.
It does. And they fit right in with me, my friends who were in these situations with me. I have no doubt. I have no sympathy for them. Like, they got there on their own journey. But I still...
their dog destroyed the carpet. Damn it.
Right. Yeah.
It is what it is.
She was Aries, though.
Huh?
Oh, that roommate with the dog who ruined the carpet, Aries. Like very, very early degree Aries. And she was like, I was always so impressed by her about how like she can let anything roll off of her. Like people could say anything to her and she's just like, okay, and like that doesn't mean anything about me. Like that's and I always just admired that so much. I was like, yes, I love that. Like that Aries, like just I am me and I'm doing what I'm doing and I really don't care what you have to say about it.
It is impressive. It's impressive. It's like the bull in the china shop. It's like, whoa, look at you. Wow. Wish I could do that. Maybe I will try it. Oh wait, that's too comfortable. It is impressive. It is impressive. I agree.
I admire that in people. And like I know that there's a lot of people slip into like the shadow side of that energy, and that's totally understandable. But I see that energy and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to foster inside of myself more. And I admire that in other people, and I see that and I respect it. Yes, I love that for you. And I could use a little more of that for me too.
Totally.
Yeah, I've got a lot of Aries and Libras in my life, and that's my MCIC line. So it does feel like a really big theme. Yeah, it's a huge theme in the book, The Courage to be Disliked. where basically he says, like, there's a big emphasis in that book about how he says all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. And he's like, has you imagine that you're the only person on the earth, like just for a second, imagine that you're literally the only person on the whole entire earth. And like, you have everything you need, let's say. Like, what problems do you have? Do you have any trouble expressing yourself? Do you feel embarrassed? Are you worried about offending anyone? Like, no, all that just goes poof, gone. But it's like, that's an imaginary scenario that doesn't exist. And we, by the nature of being human, is like, as a human, you come through another human. Like, you can't even enter this world alone, essentially. Is like, we're meant to be together, and we're not meant to do it alone. And so these problems that we have in relating to each other, like, it's the source of all problems, essentially. But like, that's kind of the point. Like, this is the work we're here to do with each other, is like work through these things, because that's what we do for each other. Is like, without another person, there is no mirror. And like, sure, you probably have no problems. Like, if you've ever seen that show, like The Last Man on Earth or whatever, he had a lot of problems, actually. He was not happy with it. He was very unhappy, but it's kind of like that, we need people, and they do show us our shadows and our triggers, but we actually really need that. Like, that's why we're here. So problems, but good problems.
Yeah, I really appreciate this a chance to have a healthy, conscious friendship. I just really appreciate this. It's so different from our unconscious selves.
Yeah.
And how we can create a sense of safety and love for each other and ourselves. And I'd be like, it's okay. It's like the energy thing. It's okay. Our nervous systems are cool. It feels very special.
Feels like an opportunity that, like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I feel like I'm here in this opportunity because of how much I've healed before, like on the path, on the journey. Like, I've worked with my emotions and my triggers and my shadow to the point where basically what it feels like I'm doing is like, I keep catching myself like projecting my shit onto you guys. And then I'm like, reel it back in, Carly. Like, nope, still not projecting onto other people. Like, we're going to put all that back in the journal and like figure it out on our own. And like that, yeah. I mean, I think as nice as it would be to like have physical space that we can share and like all that, I mean, we're in 3 different states, all in the US. It is actually really nice to have as much distance and separation inside the friendship, because yes, like that gives me days and weeks worth of space, if that's what I need, to like process what is mine and what does come up in this setting, and take all the space I need to like deal with what I need to deal with. And then when I come back, it's like, I'm so happy to see you guys. Great. Like, what all you bring is love, because I process the things over here. But yeah, I mean, if you're in the same setting or same spot, or like you're seeing each other every week or whatever, like, yeah, I think the likelihood of projecting your stuff and like putting it on the other person, blaming them for triggering you kind of scenario, like gets way more likely the less distance there is like inside the friendship. So I think what we got going on is a real nice setup. And just to like all of you guys watching out there, it's basically like we are meeting once a month on the full moon. So, well, close to the full moon, and having like a live Zoom. And then in between, sharing videos via email where we can just talk as long as we need to and share and what comes up, and have that space for allowing like totally free self-expression and sending it off into the universe, aka to these two. And it's been yes, basically been such a cool experience of stepping into intentionally conscious friendship. Yes. And that is an opportunity for, I mean, like, like you said, like, in those toxic friendships from before, like, I bet I wasn't the only one there that had some shit that they needed to address. And same for this. Like, if you want to be in friendship, then you need to be a conscious friend and like be ready to do your part of like carrying that load, aka your own part. So yeah, I wasn't ready for something like this even 6 months ago, I don't think. So yeah, it's definitely a leading edge experience for me. And so far I'm keeping up really well with the things. So it's been good.
And if you don't keep up, oh my goodness.
Fall on your face. It's going to be so embarrassing. No, I'm just
You can't keep up and you show us yourself. Oh my goodness.
Right? Heaven forbid.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and like that's the thing. It's like it really does get back into a territory of like authenticity, like how do you toe the line? And maybe this even goes back to like the Aries Libra axis of like, how do you balance taking care of yourself and honoring that this is your emotions and whatever, but also like hissing when your boundaries get crossed and like, balancing all of that. So it's an interesting experience, but so far what I've found is that like, as long as I'm willing to process the stuff that comes up, like there really don't need to be boundaries. Like it really is a safe place, and that it is okay that there are feelings that exist outside of just golden happiness and harmony, like there can be more than that in this space. Doesn't mean that the friendship is over by any stretch. So yeah, it's like desensitizing almost, which is, I'm ready for that, I think, a little bit, this step at least. So
me too.
Yeah.
Dipping our toes in the water.
Yeah.
Right. Walking in from the shallow end of the pool.
Yeah, no need to cannonball. It's okay.
I was never that kid.
No. Yeah, not really. Yeah, I've always been kind of afraid of bodies of water, which is funny because I have so much Pisces energy and I'm like pretty terrified of the ocean.
Yeah.
But it's kind of off topic. But yeah, I've always been like, what? It's just the ocean's so mysterious. I think space is less scary to me than the ocean.
Well, we're not close to space. We're not close to going up to space.
That's true. Maybe it just the distance of it feels less real.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ocean is wild.
Yeah.
And big lakes are wild.
Yeah.
Dude, there's stuff in there.
For sure.
You can't even imagine.
You don't even know. I saw this like time-lapse video recently, and it was like basically like this is so random. There's like basically like a baby fetus like growing, and then it also side by side had like a dolphin fetus growing, and up until almost the very end they looked identical, and then the dolphin one started to like develop dolphin features, but it just was like just so, I don't know, I just found that really fascinating about like, because I find myself being very afraid of like the underwater creatures, but a lot of them are like, if anything, probably more intelligent than us. And actually, like, we're not that different from them. It's very interesting.
Dude, that's like why I like the ocean, because it scares me. It feels like going scuba diving felt the same as like skydiving and going on stage to give a speech. Like it's one of those, like it's scary, and that's why you do it, because it like, I don't know, it pushes that boundary. Maybe that's like my North Node in the 12th or my Mars in the 12th, where they say like basically your spiritual path is to like be afraid and do it anyway, like face your fear over and over and over. Yeah.
Wow. So did you go skydiving before?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I'm so scared. I don't think I can do it. I went ziplining. Actually, I went ziplining once, and it was in Costa Rica, and it was like literally top of the canopy of like the rainforest is where you started, and you kind of like zigzag down. That was probably the most terrifying thing I've ever done, but I'm glad I pushed myself to do it, because I also have a lot of like a fear of heights. What is my deal? A lot
so
many fears. I don't know, but yeah. I'm glad that I faced that fear.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would do it again, but I did it the one time and that felt good.
As I was peeing, I thought like, I wonder if, like, I was thinking about you, Carly, just for a second. I was thinking about both of you, but like, I wonder if like you're expansive, like your energy's so big, Carly, and that you need that much space and time to process. I mean, I think I do too. I think probably introverts do, but your energy is big. Like if you're skydiving, you're scuba diving, you're pushing yourself, you're like, adrenaline, like you've pushed yourself into situations with that adrenaline pumping. Like it makes sense to me that you would need a lot of space to process too. And possibly, I would assume that if someone has large energy and the family or friends or society around it wasn't able to hold it or, like cultivate it, like that it feels too big. Like that's just that's the feeling I get. Like if you have such big energy, there are people, there are spaces who can hold you, who can receive you. But like what's that like? What's that like to be like have such big energy and like do the scary things?
It's so funny because like I don't feel like my energy is big. It's the size that it is, like it's until somebody else says that it's like that. I do resonate though with like everything you said as far as it does take me a long time to process it. I don't know. There's always a lot in there. But yeah, facing fears is like a thing. Like when I find a fear, it's like an invitation to do the thing. Like find the thing that scares you the most and do that. And I don't know. It's scary. It's scary and your heart is pounding and you figure out how to calm yourself through deep breaths. And I came face to face with my mortality only once, and it was while I was scuba diving. And basically, like Jason, who was my fiance at the time, like was over there under the water. We're maybe like 40 or 50 feet. And the guide is with me, and he like turned around to leave and like go swim over to where Jason was or whatever. And as he turned around and like left me, he was kicking, like swimming, and his fin like pulled on my hose and like pulled the breathing thing out of my mouth. And so I like put it back in my mouth. And in that moment, I mean, this is why you get certified and they do the training that they do, because you have to clear the water like out of your mouth before you can breathe. But at that point, like I was already panicking and I was already like thinking, like, I need somebody to help me. I had spent a little bit of time like trying to get Jason and the guys' attention, and like nobody was looking at me to help me. And finally, I remembered that like there's a button on the front of it that will clear the water out of it. Like you don't have to blow through it to get the water out. I was thinking I don't have enough air to even clear this so that I can breathe. And then I pushed the button and then I could breathe or whatever. But like there was a moment when they wouldn't look at me and I was like out of options, like they won't help me. And I was like, you're like giving up? Like under the ocean, like you're just done, like you're not going to live anymore? Like, no, fucking figure it out. Like, so there was this moment of like complete clarity, like complete, like, of course I'm not giving up. Like a little bit out of oxygen, like I can totally handle this. Like, what is my solution? And like in that moment, it was like push the button and you can breathe. And I solved it myself. I didn't need rescued. So I think like there's, again, fear is one of the best emotions in my opinion, because it can teach you so much about your reality. And like I mean, I like to think about it like our fears are the limits of our reality, you know, like if you're afraid of the ocean, so you won't go in the ocean, then the ocean might as well not exist. Like that, like go past the fear and now your reality is bigger because of it. And like same thing with skydiving. It was like I was totally fine going up in the plane, like going there and going up in the plane. And then it was like too cloudy. And I guess there's like a law, you can't jump through the clouds because maybe you'll like hit somebody else who already jumped or whatever. So anyway, so like we got all the way up there and then they have to bring us back down. And the coming back down in that little teeny plane was probably the worst part of the whole experience because it was all like bumpy and like all over the place. I'm like, I really hope they let me jump next time because having to come back down was the worst. And so then we go back up, the clouds cleared and we go back up the second time. And I was the last one because everybody else had paid to like have a videographer jump with them. So then they like film you on the way down. I'm like, I don't need that. Like, no, that's fine. And so I was the last one in the very back of the plane. And it's like a bleacher almost is like the seat. And then you like straddle the bleacher. And so you're like just a big row of people on this bleacher, like completely just smushed together. And so every time somebody would like go to the door and jump out, the guy I'm strapped to, he like pushes me forward. So we're like further ahead on the bleacher. And then somebody else jumps out and he's like pushing me forward. And I'm like getting closer and closer and closer to the door. And I'm like, are you really gonna do this? Like, are you fucking crazy? What are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And so we get all the way up there and you're like looking out and you have to tell him like, push me out of the plane. Like you have to tell him when you get to the door, like you give your final sign off. And I just like didn't even think about it. And he throws us out. And it was like, I'm going to say less than 1 second where I was like, I want to do it again. Like I was less than 1 second into the fall and I like already wanted to get back in the plane and like go again. And it's very expensive. So I've never been again, but I will be. I just want to go somewhere pretty next time. Not that it wasn't, but not a whole lot to see up there. But yeah, it was amazing. Like skydiving was probably one of the best moments of my life. Like one of the most, oh my God, like it was so much fun. So much fun. It was intense. It was an intense amount of fun. Like it matched the intensity of the fear, the amount of fun that you have, like the exhilaration, like the adrenaline is pumping and it just makes everything so much more intense, which is just so interesting because I'm such like a homebody, just sit in my bed and like never do anything. But like every once in a while, I'm like adrenaline junkie, apparently. I didn't really know that about myself until we're telling this story. But yeah. Yeah. That was a lot.
What matched the fear? What was the pleasantness? If it wasn't pretty, what was it? Just the feeling of it rush?
It's almost like, yeah, like you survived, like you conquered the fear, like you're fucking standing on top of it. It did not stop you. You won. You were the victor. Like you got the spoils, you got the experience. Like it didn't keep you small. You're bigger than that. Like it's reaffirming on like a number of levels, I would say. Yeah.
That does feel very 12th house, like kind of like dancing with death, kind of on that fine line of like, this is something that theoretically could kill me. Like I could die and I'm going to maybe feel like I'm going to, and then I'm going to overcome it. And that feels very 12th house, Plutonian, transformative, like, yeah, like transcendence almost.
Yeah, like transcending your humanness almost. Like where does courage come from? Like when fear is so intense that you're basically paralyzed and then you do it anyway, you find a way through it. Like where does that come from? And it's like it forces you to find the part of yourself that is not human. It's like it comes from beyond your humanness, the ability to like face that level of fear. So I think maybe that's why. Yeah. Like you gotta get bigger. Like you have to be bigger than the fear. And I mean, from my experience, like your spirit doesn't shrink back down after you meet the fear. Like you get bigger to meet the fear, and then you're bigger, like going forward forever, kind of thing. So every time I meet a fear, I just get bigger.
That's what I mean by like your energy feels so big and spacious. It's like you have a giant, giant bubble that you like need to fill. It just feels, even from a distance, it's just like you got a giant, giant bubble that you're just gonna be like, you're just like that's your like mission to keep filling it. It's
The
cool.
only person who's ever told me this was Dolly, and I thought she was full of shit, that like she just loves me and so she tells me nice things. But she told me that like when I walk into the grocery store, it's like my energy like fills the entire space. Like it feels so different when I'm there than when I'm not there. It just feels empty. And she says the same thing about the house, that like when you're not here, it feels so empty. And I'm like, I don't, what does that mean? I
You're
don't
like,
know.
I'm just small little
She
me.
likes,
I'm just doing my thing.
yeah,
I'm working with fears. I'm like that.
yeah.
I love adrenaline and I love, crying and I love getting right in there, but it's just me.
It's that Scorpio descendant, I think, that's like, wait, you're scared? Okay, have we looked it in the face? Have we done that part? No? Okay, let's start with that. And then it's like the fear just isn't a thing. It can't stand up to being looked at. But yeah, I don't think I've always been like that. This is all part of like what came online like 2015-ish, when I was basically like canceling my wedding. Like this was kind of the first one of like, I guess scuba diving had been before that, but yeah, canceling my wedding was the same. It was like that fear was going to be the limit of my reality. I was going to marry him and then divorce him. That was my plan. And nope. we're gonna
I'm
face
gonna do it.
I'm gonna make my reality bigger, and I'm not gonna marry him. And yeah, like once I gave myself that, it was like I was ready to say yes to more things, and yeah, not be held
Yeah.
back by more.
Yeah, it sounds like that was a limitation. That was a limiting relationship that you weren't willing to like stay small for.
In that time, it was like the definition of security in many ways. And yeah, it's like, but it was also a box. It was a teeny little box. It's like, no, too big for this box. I can't stay. Sorry.
It's so interesting. I just keep thinking of like the normal responses to like a life, like your body's response to a life or death situation is like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, I think is the other one, where you basically just over people please, which is funny. Like I feel like I can relate to that a lot, the fawning. But when you're in a situation like jumping out of an airplane, like if you're going skydiving or you're going bungee jumping or scuba diving or whatever it is, and you're not actually necessarily face to face with death, but like it's probably the closest you've been of something that feels like your physical body might actually like die. And it's almost like in those instances, fight is like kind of the only option. If you're interested in living, it's like you're gonna fight, like your scuba diving story of like, I'm gonna figure it out. Like fight is the only option here. Flight, not an option. Fawn, that's not going to help me. I tried to get help, not helping. And it's almost like, because like I feel like my body tends to register a lot of situations as being like life or death when it's really not. And so it's interesting to put your body in that situation where physically right now it kind of is. What are you going to do? And in that case, I feel like your body chooses fight. And like for me in like social situations I'm thinking of, I choose fawn or freeze, but in a more pressing situation that would not be an option. So it almost feels to me like doing something like that shows you that you're capable of it. Like I can choose fight. I'm capable of choosing that option. And then maybe you can take that from that experience and bring it to the less pressing ones, the ones that are not actually life or death, but they might just feel that way in the moment. And you can take that and be like, actually, I know how to fight and I can do that. Not that that's always the number one option, but like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like me trying to specifically for me fostering my Aries energy and like really getting in touch with my fire energy is like choosing the fight option.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need a little practice to learn how to do that and show yourself that you can.
Yeah. Yeah, did you say exposure therapy earlier? Did somebody say exposure therapy? Or
I-
just exposure? It
Mhm.
is.
I
Seems
was thinking it in my head. Literally was thinking about exposure therapy. Yeah.
Then we do have telepathy.
Yeah, I guess
Yay! We did it.
confirmed. I don't think I said it out loud, but I was thinking about exposure therapy. I did that in cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's like, yeah, that's something you do. You actually expose yourself to the stimulus and work with that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because like I'd never made this connection before, but when I've told this part of the story before. When I was 7, I gave my first speech. And it was at that moment that I figured out like I want to be a professional public speaker. And just now, like sitting here listening to this, like I think the reason that moment stuck out so much to me is like I had never been more terrified in my 7 years as when I went and stood in front of those 50 people. Like I felt like I was going to throw up. I felt like I was going to pee my pants. I felt like they were all going to laugh at me, like I was going to forget everything I said or was supposed to say. And then I lived through it, my 2-minute speech or whatever it was. And sitting back down in my chair, the high was like, I was addicted like right then and there at age 7. Like, and it was living through something that had absolutely terrified me. And still, when I walk on stage, when I press record, like it still like gives me those same nerves. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Like, oh my goodness. And again, if I was too scared, if I wasn't able to be scared and like go forward anyway, like I wouldn't have most of what my life is at this point. Like there has been a fear to face, like at every new gate, every new doorway that opened, like it only opened because I did the thing I was the most afraid to do.
That's so cool to think that at 7, like your life trajectory was
I
set in
knew.
motion. That's so cool. It's so cute too.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
dude.
cute, little
It's
Carly. She let it go. She did it. And then she was like, yes.
Well, because she was invisible in her life. And I didn't know what it was going to be like to like have all these people look at me all at the same time. And it was, yeah, it was a rush of a lot of things, I think, but adrenaline for sure, because I was so scared. But I don't know, something that imprinted on my little brain that was like, when's the next speech? When do I get to give my next speech? And it was like,
The life is full of speeches now. This is
oh,
going to
yeah.
be a terror in speech, terror in speech.
For real. And then,
For
yeah,
real.
seek it out, find the things, find opportunities to do what scares you. And yeah, I don't know, I just kind of made a lifestyle out of that, but I never really thought about it until you're talking about.
It's very inspiring.
Cool.
Super inspiring.
Yes.
I'm glad.
I have a question for you, Maddie, with the people coming back around Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Did that bring up, because it seems like you're kind of going into, this is just my guess, that you're going into like more adventurous kind of state as well in your own way. Like, was Italy an adventure for you? Did it bring back those desires that you had for that?
That's a really good question. Yeah, like for sure. Because that was a time when it wasn't impulsiveness. I mean, it was a little bit impulsive. Like my decision to go do that program was only probably like a couple months before I left. And that was I think it was like my junior year of college. And it was so much fun. And there was a lot of growth that happened there, like being out in a different country, traveling by yourself. That's a lot. Like that's pretty scary. And it felt like a really big initiation phase. And there was a lot of growth that happened there. And so to be reminded of that at this time, especially because something I was doing yesterday was just doing a lot of research on different places you can go for different types of like retreats and studying and those kinds of things, like doing spiritual work like in other countries and like really immersing yourself in that. And that's like exactly what a study abroad program is I didn't do like a homestay or anything, so it wasn't that type of immersion, but it was like being fully immersed in a new culture. And I was around other people my age. There weren't like adults. I mean, okay, there were adults, but like there wasn't anyone, there's no like chaperone who's like telling me what to do and leading the way. And we had a lot of freedom when we were there. And I liked that. I liked that a lot. Definitely. And the people too, like those friendships brought up a lot in me at the time. I still was at a time when I struggled, of course, like my whole life, I've struggled with friendships. And I ended up being roommates with these 3 other people for the whole time. And it was like a 3-month stay. And definitely by the end of it, there were some problems. But like, yeah, we managed to, I don't know, just the experience itself was so eye-opening. Now that you've mentioned that, now I'm thinking the train of thought is going of like, that's probably why I was looking into those things yesterday, is I think that sparked that memory in me of like, remember what it was like to go off and not necessarily be on your own, but be with other people who are on the same page as you, doing the same things as you. And now I'm looking into like, how can I give that to myself again in a new way?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm definitely very interested in that, because that was, yeah, such a freeing time in life. And there was so much adventure and I miss that. I really miss that. Yeah. It was a good memory.
Maybe that's like, you know, universe's way of letting you know it's on its way, we're headed in that direction, kind of thing. Like those people coming back and you getting sparked to look into it more and all of that. Like, yeah,
like remember when you traveled, wasn't that fun? It's like, yeah, that's right, I'd almost forgotten. Sometimes we get so into our routines and our ruts, and I have like a pattern of sometimes becoming really single-minded about things and forgetting that like there's this whole plethora of options that are open to me. Like when I started college, after my first year, I was ready to drop out because I hated my major. And then I was talking to my mom about it actually, and she was like, well, why don't you change your major? And I was like, I literally hadn't even thought of it. I was ready to drop out of school. You can change your major, right? It's like, oh my God, that's right. Like, if you don't like the path you're on, you can switch it. Imagine that. You don't have to just quit. And so sometimes I have that kind of like one-track mind, and I need to remind myself, like, I've been going at this for a while, and it's okay to branch out and explore different options and try new things and have adventures. Yeah.
Yeah.
what
And
was your first major?
My first major was journalism, and I did not like it. Because I've always been told that I'm good at writing. Like that's always something I've been told. And so I pretty much was just like, well, if I'm good at it, I guess I should just do that. And that did not work for me. I didn't enjoy it. It just didn't make me happy. And I didn't really like, I don't know. I just didn't like it. It wasn't for me, and that's okay. And then I ended up exploring my other options, and I discovered there was a major that basically centered around nonprofit work and like public policy and like local government and small systems like that. And I really I don't see myself necessarily pursuing that work, but like that major was definitely right for me, because it was all about like helping communities and helping people. And like that was where my heart was. And I didn't find that in the journalism school. And I just assumed, well, if I didn't find it here, it's just not there. It's like, no, it's okay. Just explore. And then in the end, like maybe, I don't know if I was super happy in college in general, and I don't know if that was the exact right path for me, but I'm glad that I tried other options instead of just giving up on it immediately. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah, way to go, Mom.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Could you major? Maybe you could try something different.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. I'm so glad. I know. I was so glad she said that. I was like, why did I not think of that? I can't believe it. And sometimes people say things to you and you're like, duh, like the crow hitting you in the back of the head, like, hello. Still not sure what that means, but I'm not going to try and figure it out too much.
Yeah.
Letting that sink in. But yeah.
Yeah, it feels very Sagittarius. It just feels very Sag, like exploring different cultures and different people and different places. And even if we do it mentally, it just feels very Sag. Just, are we in the Sag full moon? The Sag full moon?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Everything feels okay.
All right. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's my rising
So,
too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that means that that's happening in your first house, I think.
Yes.
Maddie?
Yeah, my first house.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. It's like
So yeah,
identity.
that this is all kind of coming up at this time.
That seriously, I had not made that connection yet. That makes so much sense. Yeah, for sure. I've been exploring all these options. What was I looking into yesterday? I watched this like very short documentary about ecstatic dance, which like I was born into a dance family. Like my grandparents owned a dance studio growing up. And so I spent my whole childhood dancing. And I feel like nothing is an accident. I think I chose that as like this form. I was handed this form of physical, emotional expression, like dance. And that was handed to me. And it was something that like I don't dance now, but over the years, I've like looked at like what dance studios are in the area. Maybe they have drop-in classes. Like maybe I could just go and have fun. And it's not about being good. It's just about movement and expressing your energy and moving your energy. And like I last night was discovering the idea of ecstatic dance, where people get together and then there's music and they just like move however their body wants to move. And I was like, wow, that sounds freeing and empowering. Like I feel myself moving in that type of direction of that was such a great energy management tool for me growing up that I had no idea that it was even doing that for me. And then
Yeah.
once I walked away from dance, I grew up and I didn't do it anymore. I never wanted to do it like professionally or anything like that. I was like always there to have fun. Other people were taking it more seriously than me. I was just having a fun time. And like that's what dance is for me. It's like fun, emotional, energetic expression. I miss that.
You
Yeah.
don't dance like at your house, like when you're there by yourself?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes like when I have that chance to like be by myself, because yeah, like I definitely sometimes when you start doing something like that, you want to like be alone. But I do also like the idea with ecstatic dance of this being like a gathering and people do it with each other. But I think, yeah, maybe being alone is good at first, just to get
Yeah.
comfortable with your own movement.
That's so interesting because I had this impulse to send you an ecstatic dance playlist.
No way.
Yeah, a couple days ago. It was just on my mind. And I've been listening to an ecstatic dance playlist by myself too, to try to manage my energy when I'm working and in between. And it kind of like it's very freeing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, I have a
Love it.
lot of experience with ecstatic dance and then a more formal type of ecstatic dance that is created by a local guy here, genius, called dance meditation technique that he created as a safe space. It's like club music.
Mhm.
He's trying to spread it out outside of Michigan. I think he's trained other teachers at other places, but it's badass. It's like a nightclub, but and it's like boom, 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 boom. The cool thing is he has a very specific container where he teaches people to not interact with each other, not make eye contact. It's literally meditation. So you're in your own space and you feel other people moving and you're doing your thing, but if you start making eye contact, you come back. So I feel like that's been a very socially helpful, because first of all, it's dark. First of all, we're setting an intention, like, and then you're encouraged to yell and just vocalize. It's really, really unique. And so I do that on my own too. And if I don't want, like sometimes I'm like, it'll call Josh and I'm like, me. It's for me.
This is for me.
So I'm like, I'll wear headphones so that he doesn't hear the beat and just be like, but I'll just do it in a small, a small space. And it's very healing, super healing. It's very energizing and calming. It's very like tap in,
Totally.
And then I've had experiences with other ecstatic dance where there's no container. And it's a fucking shit show.
Out of control.
People are all doing I'm like, ew, no. I don't know. Stop.
Yeah.
Weirdos. Like, it's just like going to a club. Like, no. This
Right.
is
Yeah.
if we're all in the same thing, fine. But even then, there's no container. Like, no, I need a little structure with it.
Totally. No, that concept of being taught how to like stay within your own unit energetically and like not be watching other people. I feel like I'd appreciate that a lot. Like, not just for like feeling comfortable about other people not watching me, but just like me feeling like I'm doing my part and giving other people space and giving myself space while also like feeling the energy of being together.
Yes.
There's so much benefit in that too.
The intention stated at the end, and you give energetically at the end. I think when there's no intentions or there's just open-ended, that works for some people. It does work for a lot of people, but not for me.
Yeah. And that's okay. We're all different. And that sounds more up my alley too. We're like, can we lay out a few parameters here?
Totally.
Like I just feel more comfortable with that. And maybe if I got really experienced with that, then I would be more comfortable moving to a space where there aren't parameters, because then I'd feel like I'm so well versed in just staying in my own space.
Totally.
Doing my own thing. Because I don't know how I would do with that right off the bat, but with some training and some practice. Because even just like dancing, I always dance like in the shower. Like I'll have music on and I always dance, and I like to specifically choose songs that evoke a strong emotion, whatever it is, different emotions. Like this song makes me feel really happy, and this song makes me feel really sad, and then this song has like a strong maybe like a strong like kind of sexual vibe to it to like trigger the sacral energy, and then other ones are like maybe it evokes like anger or rage or something, and to just express that physically feels so good. And it's like to just get it out I need to give myself that more, because like I've had those experiences that have felt so powerful, and then it's just a matter of working that into like your regular practice and making that like a part of your normal energy management practice. Like for me, that's something I'm really working on, is building up that toolbox and learning how to use those tools whenever I need to. And that's one of them for sure. That's one of those tools.
Yeah.
Sure. Big one.
Super fun. I would love to hear I would love to hear your music playlists that inspires you too.
I have lots. I'll share them with you. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things too. I like to say that it's like it helps me feel balanced on like the Virgo Pisces axis of like I love making playlists, and it just feels like I love all the little details of the pieces coming together, and it's like so organizational and it feels so Virgo. Like I just love that, but it's also like that the connection to the music is very Pisces.
Yeah.
Pisces. And like I've just always leaned on music when I felt like no one else understood me. Like the teenage years for sure. Like music was a big part of my life, because I felt like, okay, this is totally teenager. Like I felt like nobody understood me. Like how teenager of me to feel that way. But like when you feel like music gets you,
it does.
It's so powerful.
It is.
Yeah. So I do have like, a lot of my playlists are based on like an astrological transit, or like the elements. I have a playlist for each of the elements. So that's fun. But yeah, it's just such a fun process, a healing process. And I like to revisit those old songs that like would trigger or like evoke something really strong in me, like as a teenager, specifically in those years when music was so powerful for me, because those pieces that are still a little unhealed Like they didn't get as much love as they needed because I didn't know how. And now that I'm learning how, I'm going back to those songs because it brings me back to that place. And then I'm releasing the emotion that I didn't know how. So that's been interesting. I'm like listening to a lot of music from high school, but it feels really good because it's like I'm doing this processing that I didn't know how to do then.
Yeah. The pre-verbal.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know how to speak it.
It's very cool. There's also, I mean, obviously you can do this by yourself, but there's also somatic movement therapists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And into like you express your emotions like physically, and then to music or not, you know. So yeah, depending on the resources around you, that's a thing.
That's, yeah.
There's usually a sliding scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like things that are body based for me personally, just with specifically having a Virgo North node and then my Mars is retrograde, like conjunct that is like body issues come to mind. And then also just I do have a lot of energy in Aries in my birth chart, and that is very much like the physical body oriented. And like,
Yeah.
so I have stuff to work through with that, but I do feel like, especially, I mean, I have my Saturn in Aries too, and it's like I've struggled with my body for a long time, and now I feel like I'm reaching this point where the wheels are turning, tables are turning, and it's like actually that's your strength. And so as I find myself getting more interested in these things, these like more somatic body-based practices, I'm like, maybe this is where my magic was all along. And I actually like, that's why I struggled with my body so much, is because that's how I can heal, you know, and use that to like help other people heal. Very Virgo, being the healer. Because that's like all I want. It's like, I just want to help other people, but I need to figure out how to help myself first. I've been doing it.
Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it.
Maddie's playlist, I can personally attest. So the Earth playlist is my dance playlist. Like if I want my body to move, then I will put on the Earth playlist, and it's like my body responds to the music that she put on there. And yeah, has and continues to. That's been months now that yeah, like even if I love how you say like no matter what the song is, like that's my question about ecstatic dance, like sounds happy. Is it happy? Is that like the
It's a
ecstatic
DJ.
part?
Usually a DJ. The
Okay.
ecstatic part is, I think they're trying to get to an ecstasy, and sometimes that's with drugs too, but it's a DJ usually, and it's usually EMD, yeah, like
Like some kind of
dubstep usually.
Right.
That's typically what the but you can have ecstatic dance with anything. I mean, like when it's in the group setting, it's sort of a hippie scene.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Big time.
sort of a hippie scene, and like I think drugs are used, and then like the DJ electronic, but it does, you know, it's just a way of moving your body to ecstasy is I think the point of it.
I'll have to share, and I can like link it in the video too, or email you guys. Like the documentary I watched yesterday was literally like a 12-minute long documentary. So it's like that is my kind of documentary. I love that. But the way they explained it was basically like, it's not about necessarily reaching, I guess you kind of do reach the ecstatic level, but through the expression of all the emotions that come through you. So like if something negative or sad or bad or whatever comes up, then it's like move your body however that emotion wants to move through your body, you know, and let that out. And they explain it as basically like meditation. So like, you know how in meditation there is the concept of like spiritual bypassing where you just go straight to the bliss phase and you ignore everything else. But you can also meditate where like, I think of like Carly and Tony's conversation about when like basically like meditation nightmares come up. You're in meditation and something comes up and it wants to be sat with. It's really easy to just be like, oh, don't want that. No, thanks. Like, let's get that bad image out of my head. But really what it wants is to be seen. And I think that with this, there's a chance for that too, of like whatever comes through you. And if you want to, like, I don't know, people probably like cry and stuff and move just however, but the music is like upbeat. It reminds me of like shamanism too, with like when shamans do their journeys and they have the drum beat, and you just let yourself get lost in that to the place where you're almost just united with the beat and you're not separate from it anymore.
Yeah.
And he specifically said in the documentary that they don't use drugs, and it seems like they do, but they don't.
Not my experience. Yeah, that's not my experience. I think that documentary was how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Experiences are, so I think that's what led Michael to develop DMT, which is a very specific system. But many festivals and stuff have ecstatic dance, and it's very the documentary cleaned it up a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I feel like I got like a polished presentation of it, but I like the purity of what was explained, because I like that idea. And Carly and I have had this brief conversation about how, like, with like, I mean, my own experience, like with drugs, and like I think that like we are capable of getting to that level of ecstasy without any drugs. And it's like through something like that we can do it if you really surrender yourself. But also I can see how drugs would be a nice assistance in having that experience, you know, and creating that experience. But I think it's possible to do it without that and to have just as much ecstasy and bliss as you're looking for.
Yeah, there's no shame on the drug use. It's just without a container, it's definitely a shit show.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've been it, you know, so like it really matters. Like a good shaman is a good shaman. Like a good shaman is caring for the group, you know. A good leader of a group is caring for the group, creating that safe space continuously. And when there's lots of unbridled pain where there's no rules at all, my experience has been a lot of re-traumatizing for people.
That's good to know.
That's just there's the like mom in me that's like, be safe. I've experienced the shit show part, and it's not pleasant for a couple weeks afterward, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. There's just that part of me, but it's like, still do it. But that's about who you choose.
That is helpful to know. And yeah, like I said, me personally, I would prefer to go into something with parameters. I like for that kind of thing to be laid out for me, and it just makes me personally feel more safe and comfortable no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's care for the nervous system. There's the care for the nervous system, because stuff does come up. And like Carly is saying, like, even just this, you know, friendship, there's so much to process afterward. Those kinds of situations bring up a lot. And it's lovely. But yeah, the process, just keep in mind the processing afterward.
That is good.
But we can get there with breath work. We can get there with dance. We can get there. I've had many psychedelic experiences without, I mean, with herbs, literally just herbs and a trigger. Like literally like visions and out of my body.
Yeah. I mean, when they say plant medicine, like, even just like, yeah, like the herbs and the ones that you don't think of as having like psychedelic effects of any kind, they can take you on a journey.
They do. They do.